Where's the camera?
Darcy's like. Can you see me now?
I can hear you.
I'm so glad I'm not there. That's what Joe's saying.
Darcy's trying to get a song to you.
Well, she's gonna sing you a song. She's got the song.
No,
We're
we're
just gonna sing.
collaborative effort here.
We're gonna have St. Francis's Darcy Song of the Week. That's gonna be on the website.
Get Michelle on that. She'll have it. She'll have you on the highlights for sure.
Hometown highlights, Darcy Song of the Week.
What you end up doing with the doors and just propping it or what?
Yeah, I propped it.
Okay.
Have any trips planned, Kevin?
Deer hunting here starting Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday at the University of Minnesota. There's Cedar Creek Preserve there. We set up stands yesterday for about 4.5 hours and got drawn in the lottery to go do that, so that'll be fun.
Oh, right there in Oak Grove?
Yeah, or East Bethel or Bethel.
Oh, okay.
It's east of Cooper's Corner.
Okay.
Yeah, all that
Archery
property.
or what?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. Did some volunteer work during the summer and then they put your name in a hat and get a chance to go out there. So my brother-in-law got a really nice one. Well, he lives across the street more towards County Road 56. But there was a gentleman in our zone last year that got a really nice 10-point the first night. But they have an overabundance of animals and they want you to, it's a doe first and then you can shoot a buck if you see one. But they just got done with the youth hunt and they had 1 out of 5 kids got an animal last week. And then during the phase, we're in phase 2. Phase 1 was 7 animals, 8 animals out of 23 hunters. So the weather was really pretty nice too. So they had a bad time, but things are changing and we got a little cool front coming. We'll see. We saw a lot of signs. My brother-in-law is pretty good woodsman. So we were looking, found a lot of different things, tracks and trails and stuff. So we'll be hopeful. I'm pretty proficient with my bow now. Last year I used a crossbow. They're pretty heavy and bulky. Get up in the stand. They're really accurate, but
My neighbor does
Bow
bow
hunting?
hunting,
yeah.
but he's out in the yard practicing, we're sitting there and we hear.
Yeah. It's a cool sound. Yeah, so we got some really nice, the zone we got was nice. We got inside and lots of hardwoods and some swamp around it and it'll be fun. It'll be good nature.
you need to start moving during the daylight. I got lots of camera on during the evening, but
Yeah. Gotta catch them either sneaking out to party or coming home
What
from
is the-
partying.
What times can you hunt?
Half hour before and half hour after sunset. So tomorrow, I think Thursday is 7:05, so at 6:35 you could shoot. Really tough to see at 6:35. And then half hour after sundown, which is like 6:05, 6:15. So half hour before and half hour after sunset. So tomorrow, I think Thursday is 7:05, so at 6:35 you could shoot. Really tough to see at 6:35.
like an echo from.
Half hour after sundown, which is like 6:05, you're coming home from party.
I'm live on YouTube.
Can you hear us, Joe?
I can hear you, but I can't see you.
Yeah, I'm not sure what.
That's okay. Yeah, we see that.
And Kate's quiet. I don't know if her mic's not on.
Is that
Yeah,
better?
it's not down.
Or Jenny. I couldn't hear who was talking.
Ready?
Jenny's
Huh?
not even here.
No.
Okay.
He
Must have been
can't.
Kate.
Yeah, I don't know why you can't see us.
Is your video, sometimes the video is turned off because if I look at YouTube, it just shows me right now.
Yeah.
But I don't want it on my computer.
Hey, there's something.
There we go. You just
Ready?
keep pushing buttons. We're good.
All right. Call to order the meeting on Monday, October 27th, 2025 at 5:30 PM. It's a work session. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please, Kate.
Yep. Councilmember Robinson,
Here,
Udvig. Here. Mulebauer,
Here,
Panis. Here. Mayor Vogel.
Here. Agenda items, fire district considerations.
Actually, Mayor, I will start this.
Okay.
So Mayor and Council, before you tonight is a breakdown of all of the considerations we need to look at as we're moving over to the district. I don't know what would be easiest. I can go through these kind of line by line at a high level, or if you just want to answer or ask questions. But I could just walk through these pretty quick and then you can stop me if you have a question as well. So we're really looking at ending up with 3 agreements. We will have a user agreement of the building. We are looking at like an employee and separation agreement because we have a lot of one-time transfers, employment pieces that we need to tie up. And then also the fiscal agent agreement, which will be the ongoing financial support that we will provide as a contract to the district. So within those 3 reports, SHOPS is working on a lot of the legal language, but these are some of the finite questions that we need to come up with is what do we want to do and how do we want to do it? So starting at the top, we have just a basic, starting with the fiscal agent pieces, is the district to pay $24,000 per year. And that the district would be paying that for the administrative and financial services of the city of St. Francis.
Sorry to interrupt, Kate. My computer's not
Oh.
pulling up. Can we pull it up on screen or no?
Or do we lose Joe?
Or, yeah.
Um,
I
I
don't
can
wanna
grab
lose
you a
Joel.
copy of Mary back there.
well,
I'll just go grab a hard copy.
yeah, we can,
well, they've lost me in the past, like when Beth shares, and then people on YouTube, I think, can see it too. I don't know if that's an issue or not, but I'll still be here. I think you just wouldn't be able to see me.
right. I got so many things open on here.
I don't know why it's not pulling up. Also. Screen
It's your
here.
computer.
I-
I never have any problems with mine. And I'm not good at computers. It's not because I'm,
Oh, I'm definitely not, but it'll get me all the way to this. I'm gonna try it again here.
Okay, what were we? Oh, you're doing something.
Let's see if I could share my.
Oh, there we go.
Just had to have, just had to have people watch.
Yeah.
We had to have me walk over here.
Yes.
Darcy has the presents.
Sorry about that. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Ooh, now that's everywhere. Oh, you can see it.
I can see it on the screen over by Dave.
Not on your screens. Yeah, that is. It might get there. Okay, if you have a copy.
Yep.
So,
Thank you.
so the fiscal agent fee, proposed is 2,400 per year. That would cover all of the, thank you, Dave,
24,000.
24,000
Thank you.
per year, correct. Then the fiscal agent's fee to begin in January of 27, and a couple of these items I pushed to January of 27 because we don't have them specifically in the fire budget. Right now, everything that we're talking about is either being collected, paid for, so nothing is new, but it's just how we have it separated in the budget now versus how we'll separate it once they're a district. Darcy does all of the finance for fire, but we don't have it pulled out separately as a line item in fire's budget. So this is just also kind of moving around some of those pieces. So these aren't new fees, these aren't new expenses, just to make that clear, but it's not in the fire department budget, so we could shift it around for 26, but for just the beginning of this conversation, I just said starting at 27 because it'll then be all lined up. Health insurance benefits.
So do we want to, yeah, I'm sorry, Kate. I mean, do we want to weigh in on each one of these as we go kind of a thing? Or how do you want to?
That's up to you. If you want to go one by one, I'm happy to do so. If you want me to just go through them and then give me feedback, whatever works for you guys, whatever's cleaner.
I mean, I'd rather just, yeah, right, correct. I agree with Sarah. If, I mean, you got a question, ask it, but
Yep.
As
Okay.
we go.
as we go. So,
Okay.
yeah, I'd prefer that we just address it as you go through them.
Okay.
So if anybody's got anything, so anything on one or two there, fiscal agent fees, anybody?
Can I chime in quick?
Yep, go ahead, Joe.
Okay, so I talked with Kate earlier too, just to kind of clear some of this stuff up because it's as clear as mud. But it makes sense. But I think too, one of the things we want to keep in mind is keeping everything separated from the city and doing what we're doing to lay the groundwork here is important, because if we do add other cities later on, the negotiating power goes from say 2 and 2 to now we have 2 St. Francis, 2, I'm going to say Oak Grove just for argument's sake, 2 now then, in a perfect world, we have a huge district and everybody's working together at some point. But to separate these things from the city, it's still the same funds, but they're under different umbrellas, so to speak. So I just wanted to throw that out there just for people to keep in mind, I think, while we're talking about these things. That's it.
I have a question, Mayor.
Go ahead.
Kate, as we see this, and is Bethel seeing the same format as we are? Will they be talking and discussing the same things? Only their numbers might be a little bit different as far as,
Mayor Council, I'll refer over to Dave for the Bethel piece.
Portions will be germane to the city of Bethel. We talked about it at our fire board meeting
Yeah.
briefly, that some of these things are gonna have to be replicated on the Bethel side. When we talk specifically about the building and the fleet, and they have their own obligations or responsibilities under the joint powers to replicate on their side. Some are not, because we're the fiscal agent. Bethel doesn't have to discuss what that fiscal agent piece looks like.
Oh, okay.
That's a function of what St. Francis is gonna provide to the district that has already been agreed upon. So probably the first 2/3 is going to be St. Francis specific. But there will be some overlay that Bethel will have to handle their assets independently, just like we're doing today.
okay. And I'm gonna jump ahead just real fast, quick. 25, where it says Bethel contract. City will transfer funds received from Bethel contract to the district in 26. So Bethel will or won't be contributing something until the beginning of the calendar year.
So because we're currently operating under that 2-year contract,
Mm-hmm.
we wanted to honor the contractual.
Oh, okay.
For 26. And that's why we're delaying the fiscal agent contribution from the district back to the city as well. Being that we're days away from November, we're very deep into the budget discussion. We wanted to be able to use fixed numbers and not have this change in September or October. We've already done a lot of work towards the budget. And again, honoring that contractual piece with the city of Bethel.
I forgot about the second portion, the second year, so that answers quite a bit of my questions. Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Sarah, Amy, anything else?
Not on these.
Only one I've got real quick is just the 24,000. I know it's just a spit wad number. I mean, what was it based on 8 hours a week? Or I mean, what's it based off of?
Yep, so Mayor Council, actually, we looked at what the costs are today. We did a lot of development of how many hours are into payroll, how many hours are into accounts payable. So it isn't a complete number that's pulled from the air. We did do some calculations to see roughly where we're at on a normal kind of on a basic year, like at a year to year, nothing exciting is happening, right? Like a kind of a flatline year. That 24,000 would be a fair price. So, and it's again, the payroll, the audits, accounts payable. So. Okay, so number 3 has to do with the health insurance benefits. So we have 2 full-time employees in the fire department that are currently on city benefits. Because they're going under their own tax ID and everything, and they're no longer employees of the city, that these will go to what's called a control group under our insurance. So as long as their personnel policy mirrors ours as to when benefits kick in, then they can be a group under us and they can continue their insurance. However, the district will be responsible for district employees. So, but they don't have to go out and find a new policy and try to really start something new. They can be a control group under us.
So this continues even when we hit 2027, you're saying?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. Legal representation. So what's proposed is they'll continue working with BGS. The city every year puts down a retainer. And when we were working with Anoka Champlin, what we learned is the same agreement applies there. The BGS is also their attorney down there. So what they do is the city has the retainer, but then the district is billed for any services used. So we would continue our normal business, but they don't have to drop a retainer. But if they use any legal services, they just pay out of their budget. So that's what the legal representation would be.
And the retainer fee will stay steady even if it grows into a bigger fire district, or is the retainer fee based on the amount of volume and amount of people?
I
Mayor,
would say that would be subject to change based on the growth of the district.
Okay.
If we start seeing 3 and 4 and 5 cities, that's certainly going to change probably the expectations from BGS on the size of the retainer. So I think that would be subject to change based on potential growth.
And, I mean, just to reiterate, if any guy jump in anytime, so don't.
Yep.
Thanks.
okay. Then number 5, the transfer of the fiscal responsibilities. So following, basically items will be transferred from the city to the district through the fiscal agent. So with that, like our financial software will have to be separate. So Darcy's working with BSNA to have their own account. The district is working on their own website, insurance, the enterprise, our auto leases and our fleet management. So credit cards, cellular plans. So all of that will separate essentially from the city is what that statement is about. So then number 6 is the fiscal agent term. So what we're looking at is starting that term at 5 years with an auto renew every 5 years. So that way, if another city does come in with greater capacity or we grow so big that it's just out greater than what our city can handle with our size, that every 5 years there's an opportunity if there's another way to do this. So, but committing that for 5 years kind of commits you to those audits, right? There's a lot that would need to transfer all of those accounts, all of that payroll. So 5 years, to really get him set up and transferred once we'd had that notice.
Kate,
Yep.
quick question about the software stuff. Does that mean there's another subscription and another fee added to that because it's a separate entity, so to speak, or we're not sure?
No. It's within the ability of the software to set up a separate entity.
Okay. That's all.
Kate, can I back up for a second to number 5? Where it says, software, website, auto and employment insurance. Does that mean if, the district, someone driving the truck has an accident, does that mean the city is not liable for that at all?
Correct. They will be their own legal business entity. So the city will no longer be liable for work comp, auto accidents, any of the above. They'll have their own insurance.
And if the fire truck is in our building and it starts on fire and half our building burns down, whose insurance pays for that?
Yep, so we're working through that with our
Sorry,
use
that's
agreement.
right
Yep,
on.
it's much like a tenant landlord situation. So there's triggers where our building will have to kick in, but what's worked with the auto insurance, so could be both. But a lot of that is being worked out through the lease agreement or use agreement. But I will make sure that that is addressed as a question with the final agreement? Write that down quick. Okay. All right.
'Cause We're
Next.
we're not locking into anything tonight. It's just
Correct.
a rough read through so we can give direction as to where to go.
Correct. These questions fill the gaps in the use agreement, the fiscal agent agreement as to what we want to charge, how we want to charge it, the terms. So, correct. You'll have the 3 actual documents coming forward in the near future here.
I just want to say one more thing. The 5 years, that it auto renews in 5 years, I feel like maybe if it was a contract that we were already doing and everything was going well, I feel like 5 years is a long time for the first part of this. I don't know, that's just me. 5 years makes sense after that, but to me, 5 years is a pretty long time to start.
Sure. And Mayor and Council, we have a 5-year divorce clause, so it's a minimum of 5 years before anybody can move out even at this point. So it follows the JPA that was put in place with the divorce clause as far as a starting year. But it can be, if you would prefer it to be something else, just let me know what you want.
Any ideas? Timeline?
Well,
I
3
don't know.
years makes more sense to me for the first one, but we're just supposed to be saying what we're thinking
Yeah,
about all
no,
of these things, right?
absolutely,
So that's what I'm
absolutely.
thinking.
Is that consent? You want me to change that? Is that consensus? I guess.
I'm just processing the,
What do you think, Dave? What was a 5 year, the thinking of the 5 year?
Sure, and we had some discussion around the term, and I think we wanted to leave some agility in the agreement that if a larger entity came on board with higher capacity, that we wanted to be open to that potential and not lock in for a longer term. But we also felt that it was germane to match the fiscal agreement with the divorce clause, so things would line up structurally if there was a catastrophic failure. The divorce clause was initiated, the fiscal agreement should terminate on pace with that discussion, right? So that's where we were going with our thought process of 5. The other potential, as Kate mentioned, is if probably be long after I'm gone, this turns into 5 or 6 cities, the fiscal agent may not be a municipality. The district may choose to hire a fiscal person within the district as an. So we do want to make sure that we don't lock ourselves into Councilmember Faunus's point of exorbitant terms, but we should try to match some of our terms and our languages together for consistency's sake, but still maintain that flexibility or agility as this rolls as we move forward. So that was the thought process that we had.
I have a question to that.
go ahead, Joe.
So it makes sense, I think, to divorce if the divorce clause is initiated. However, it's a 5-year term. So let's say we go 2 years. Bethel says, I want out. They have to stay for another 5 years. Then we're off terms at that point with our fiscal agent. Is that correct?
Mhm.
It's a great question. So to your example, we sign the Bethel initiates the divorce clause in year 2. We have 3 years remaining on our fiscal agent agreement, but we're going to potentially dissolve in 2 years. That's where we would come back to the fire board and the representative councils and say, okay, we know where we're going to end up. Let's not do the auto renewal for the 5-year process. Let's do the hard renewal for the 2-year process, which then should align with the divorce clause. Does that make sense?
Kinda. And then I guess my other question that was kind of leading into this was, and I'm gonna throw Oak Grove's name out there just because they're probably our closest neighbor. And just so the public knows, there's no rumors or anything of this happening. I'm using them as an example of if hypothetical only. Say they want to join in year 3, and they say, yeah, we want to join up, or Now Then, or anybody, and then they have a 5-year divorce clause. I mean, that kind of, it sounds like, I mean, it would be the same situation where if there was any kind of change in any of the agreement, would it change for everybody? Would we end up having to kind of renew different contracts, or is then Bethel on the initial contract? Obviously it's expandable, but I don't know if you get what I'm trying to say, Dave.
I do. I guess what I'm envisioning in my mind is, let's use your example of Oak Grove coming on board. The joint powers agreement would have to be amended in totality to account for that, to include Oak Grove, right? So I think that's where those terms kind of reset with that new entity coming on, that this is a new joint powers agreement, and that 5-year divorce clause starts at the inception of that third city coming on board. Does that make sense? So you're not having potentially dealing with a couple different divorces at the same time.
Right. So the divorce clause as well, then it's not a rolling 5. It's just the initial contract's 5 years, basically. If they decide in year 4 they want to be done at the end of 5, that's completely fine. It's not 5 years from the time they decide to quit.
It is 5 years from the initiation of divorce.
Okay. That makes sense. Okay. That's all I have.
Any other strong feelings on 3 or 5 or?
I would defer to Dave's. I mean, he seems to think that this is the that makes the most sense and is the easiest to keep track of. And in that case, I don't think it's, I mean, I don't think 5 years is out of the question.
So 5 years, and you say it has to be a divorce. Let's just say it's 2 years down the road
Sure.
and everything's going good. So nobody
Yeah.
wants out or whatever else, but the fire board determines they want to change it to a 3 or 5 year.
They could,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Obviously, the city would have to agree that we want a different term because of these objectives. But that's been our discussion through this entire process, is we're not gonna get everything right on the first try. We're taking best practice, but best practice doesn't apply to every single situation that we're going to encumber during this process. I'm comfortable at the 5 years. I do very much understand, appreciate Councilmember Bonus's concerns. Whatever this council agrees, we'll make work as part of the fire district, fire board. So I'm not married to one term or another. Again, I think one of the other pieces that we examined during our discussion on what that term would look like is looking at some of our neighboring communities, and we are in a stronger position to be that fiscal agent relative to our immediate neighbors. Right now, if it expands beyond that, or if we have somebody who's not an immediate neighbor who wanted to join it, we still want to have a term that gives us the opportunity to go, okay, well, maybe it makes sense to go with, not that they're talking either, Joe, Coon Rapids, right? So, we felt it was a fair number, but again, I think I'll speak on behalf of myself and fire district. I think we'd be agreeable to 3 or 5 or whatever you think.
If I can ask, I mean, what 3 year, you're preferring 3?
I just think it's a long time, right from the get-go. I think it's a long time.
Cause I don't know. I know in some of our discussions, we wanted to make everything longer, so there's some stability to get started. I mean, is some of it. I think the fact that the fire board a year well, not a year, but in 2008 could say, no, we prefer to change it to this. I think it gives us some flexibility. So I don't know. I know that's what we talked about, even the divorce clause. We want it to be long enough to discourage people from just, they get upset about one incident and then they want it right away out. And I think in a situation like this, longer is better, and it is flexible. So I don't know. I guess I'm more inclined to say the 5 year.
I'm good with the 5 also. And think of actually, if the divorce clause did get triggered, they want to take their toys and go home. They don't have any toys. It's the district's toys now. So it would take them X amount of years to get their equipment together, get the group together. I mean, just like you say, the ramifications of even thinking about, you know, maybe a separation, but not a full divorce, because what do? You know, how do you separate all the toys up again? And would the district want to, no, these are now our stuff. You gotta start fresh from scratch. I think a city would have to really think long and hard and be in a critical situation to say, I'm out. So they're gonna leave their people without a service until they spend $1.6 million on a new truck and the grass reunit and stuff. So it took us 2.5 years to get to where we are now. Can you imagine what a divorce would take to break it all down and put all the stuff back on the shelf and somebody leaves ticked off and empty-handed? So, or with at least a check in their hand, but what good's that gonna do you if your neighbor's house is on fire? So I'm good with a 5. I understand Amy's situation or Amy's question as well. But this is a big moving machine and it takes a while to get up and moving to speed. It'll take a long time to get it to slow back down, in my opinion.
Sarah, Joe?
Yeah, I'm on board with the 5 there.
Yeah, I think for now the 5 is good, just to start out. And I agree with Kevin. I think with Bethel especially, I think, I mean, they're almost a part of our city as it is, you know, geographically. So I think that's the kind of a more of a locked in situation too. So I don't see an issue with the 5 years initially. And then if we need to revisit that, this is kind of a learning curve situation too, where we're all kind of learning as we go. So I think, if we need to adjust things later on, that is something we can revisit. And I don't know how that works. I mean, if we have to honor the current contract, that's fine. But in the next 5 years, we're going to learn a lot, I think, and probably have to figure out what we need to do. So.
To get your direction, so.
Thank you.
And then can I back up to number 4 as well? So the city will continue to maintain its retainer with BGS, but the district will cover any expenses that they have. Is that correct?
Correct.
So what if we need BGS for counseling between the 2 entities? Who pays for that? And is that a conflict of interest?
So BGS has several attorneys. We definitely can tap. Otherwise, you know, one of the district may have to find another attorney. We also have another attorney basically on our list for assignments that handles all of our administrative and code enforcement. That is not BGS. So we have access to another firm, but they would pay all of their own costs and we would pay our own costs.
It's kind of a good question. I mean, do we need to write something in there where it wouldn't be a BGS versus BGS representing? I don't.
So I asked that specific question, excuse me, the Anoka Chaplain Fire Chief, where the Anoka Chaplain are represented by BGS. The fire district is represented by BGS. If they ever ran into a scenario where that became a mutual litigation situation, his recollection, it's never happened. And when there has been issues where maybe the city takes one stance on an issue and the fire district takes another, what Kate just described, where there's other attorneys that are a part of either city that can kind of step in and navigate that small process. But he said by and large, any issue they've had has been very minor. So
We need to.
again, we're working in concert and partnership, not at odds with each other. So I guess I don't foresee that being a potential issue, but I think we do have some level of protection, whether it be through a different law firm already working with the city in place that would be able to help us navigate any potential.
Do we need to write anything into it though, stating that it would be?
I think that would be a question for BGS specifically on what that language could or should look like.
Right.
Yep. And I will, as Dave goes through our legal documents, make sure he addresses.
Yep, okay. Anything else on that?
No, not
Okay.
on that one.
So 7, 8, and 9 are all related. So we've kind of moved out of the fiscal agent agreement and moving over to a shared space agreement.
Oh, can I back up? I'm
Yep.
sorry.
No, you're, that's why we're here.
So the transfer of fiscal responsibilities, but if St. Francis is still the fiscal agent, so the moving of some of these things, they're actually getting transferred into the district's name
Correct,
like actual money moving over.
correct.
So, but we are still the fiscal agent, meaning they're not a check signer. I'm using it very simply. Is that correct?
Who's not a check signer?
Well, if we're the fiscal agent, the city's the fiscal agent, and we're transferring money to a separate entity, who's signing the checks?
It would be the district's responsibility to manage all of those aspects as check signers. It would be if the city would facilitate that process by processing payroll. We would have to do our own audit as the fire district as well. The audit wouldn't be done in concert with the city, our own auditor. They're just going to be the vehicle in which we utilize from a software standpoint, from a payroll processing standpoint, and probably 15 other things that Darcy can describe to you better, but the district itself is gonna have standalone financial policies, personnel policies, that's all gonna be governed by the fire board, so that's where the kind of that check and balance comes into play. So when you think of fiscal agent, think of more of an assistant than the person that's actually writing the checks themselves.
That's what I thought. The money was going to you.
Yep.
Quick question.
Go ahead, Joe.
So, well, maybe not a question, but, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, too. So basically the way it works, just for everybody's understanding as well as my own, is you get the money is used at your discretion, the discretion that the council has. Say, for instance, Dave says, I want to hire 5 full-time people. We say at our budget, we're not giving you that money to do that. We're giving you X amount of money to operate the fire department. That's where the council's deal kind of stops, is we give you the money to use for your services, and then you use that at your discretion with your policy, and then the board is obviously the part of the oversight on that.
Yep, so currently, I guess as we transition to the fire district, think of the fire board as the city council for the fire district. Okay? From a city to city perspective, the budget will be called out on the funding formula that's in the JPA. The budget would be worked through the fire board and presented to the cities based on their amount of cost sharing. And the cities decide that that is what they're going to pay, or that that's what they're agreeable to pay, or that's what they're not. If they're not, it goes back to the fire board and the district. They rehash their budget, comes back to the city for approval for the funding piece. But from a day-to-day operation and governance piece, think of the fire board as the city council for the fire district.
Well, that's the first time I've heard it explained that way. I understood that the 2 people that were chosen on our council, Mark and Kevin, and the 2 people that were chosen on Bethel's council, I don't know their names, and that 5th person, they were the ones who were making the decisions. I didn't
Yeah.
know there was a board for the district.
And that's what I'm trying to articulate is today, we operate as the city council is providing direction to the fire department of the city.
Mhm.
January 1st, it's the fire board that will be acting as essentially what you are doing today as a city council. That's where that governance comes from. So you still have council representation, 2 members, full cities, but they're operating as a fire board, not as a city council. But they're making much of the same decisions that traditionally the city council has to make.
Well, how do we explain to the taxpayers that we take a whole bunch of money and a whole bunch of equipment and this building that we just built and give it to basically a separate entity of people that were not elected, maybe don't live here?
They were elected though.
how-
That's the representation from the council.
Well, but he's saying that there's another council of people on the fire
No.
board.
No.
That the fire board is the 2 people from the council, and then as of right now, Charlie, and then the 2 people from Bethel. So there's elected people from both cities, and then the 5th person.
Okay, so, but, so what that means is there's fewer St. Francis city council members that were elected that are having a say in what happens on the fire board once it's started.
You are correct.
There's
equal
fewer- there's-
representation from both cities for the fire board. or continuity about.
Right, and when you take St. Francis and Bethel and look at them in terms of population and number of fire calls and what they're contributing to this, we're contributing a lot more,
Sure.
right? It seems not balanced to me that, it just doesn't seem balanced to me. And I think I said in our last work session that I personally did not agree with Charlie being that fifth person.
Sure.
He was the one who did the study. So of course, and the first thing on the study was, we need more full-time people. I'm being really simple. But the first thing on the study was, we need more full-time people. Well, what do you think is gonna happen come January 1st? There's gonna be, hey, we need more full-time people. And Joe just said that the fire district can decide
No.
whatever they want to do
No.
with, they decide they want 5 full-time people and they have the money for it, they can do it.
They won't have the money for it, I can guarantee you
Well,
that.
Right,
I
right.
just- I don't believe that Charlie should be that fifth person, because of course, he's gonna agree with everything that's written in his study. I mean, why wouldn't he? He wrote the study. He made all of those recommendations. So human nature, I'm not speaking anything bad about him, but of course, he's going, that fifth vote is going to be for everything that's in the study.
And
Right or wrong.
that I think though is, well, you can't say what Charlie's gonna do or not gonna do, that's hypothetical, but I do think though that that's where you making the budget when it comes budget time for our city, that's where you pay attention to what do we spend last year, what are we spending this year, where are we at with this, where are our costs going? Because if you don't give the district the money to hire 2 people, 3 people, 1 person, they can't afford to hire 1 person or whatever full time. So that's where the city council still has, as a whole, a council has that authority to manage the budget that's given to the district. So that's where the council is involved there. The board can say, we think we need this. They bring it to the council and we say, yeah, we see what you're saying, but we're not going to give you that much money. And that limits what the district is able to do. So that's your oversight over the board even, because it comes back to the council first. Does that sound right?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll also say, you can feel however you want about Charlie, and this isn't a defense of Charlie. Charlie is 1 vote. I would be willing to bet my paycheck that if Charlie recommended to the fire board tomorrow that we're gonna hire even 1 more full-time staff member, you have 2 people here that are gonna say no. And 1 vote will never overcome 2, and it certainly won't overcome 4. I'm not gonna call into question Charlie's character. He's been nothing but upfront and honest.
And I don't mean to do that
Process.
either.
So I hear your concerns. I understand your concerns. I would be willing to believe that the board feels very differently about that. But we have been forthright and upfront with everything that we're doing, from not only our committee to our board work that we had a couple weeks ago, to our upcoming board meeting and what we do with the council. I get the fear. I have no designs to make this into a full-time department in a year, 2, 5, or 10. I am trying to make sure that we provide the service that the community expects from us, and that's it. And now I work with the fire board to ensure that capacity is met in whatever way the board and the cities decide collectively together. So that's all we're trying. This is set up and designed to operate as similarly to or exactly to every other fire district that exists in the state, with a great deal of success. I guess I don't know what else to add to this. I appreciate and I'm very pleased that you're advocating for what you believe in. I hear you. I can't tell you that is the direction that we're at all. Because Mark and I have had conversations, Kevin and I have had conversations. I don't know what to tell you. We're not asking for 5 full-time people. What we've asked for is nothing what is in the study as far as staffing. I have no intention of asking for more full-time staffing this year or next year. And I believe the exact statement that Mayor Vogel offered is, let's make sure we're controlling our run volume, because more full-time staffing is not in your future. And I don't want to misquote you, but I think that's as close as I can get without watching the video. So that provides me with some insight on how I need to manage the district or the department. And that's one of your votes right there. So, I don't foresee it being an issue. But I do hear you, and I appreciate your candor to do that.
I think it's a reasonable point to make, given that he did make the study. I can see where you're going with that. But I think too, if one thing that makes me feel better about the whole situation is being in some of those talks, after Steve got sick and seeing the conservative nature of Bethel. They're pretty strict on their budget too. So I would think that they wouldn't want to pay more than they have to either. And I think that's something that's going to keep it. I don't see them trying to expand the budget a lot, I guess, if any, to be honest with you. So I will throw those 2 cents in there.
Anything else?
Okay. So items 7, 8, and 9 are all related. These are moving to the space agreement. Number 7, first of all, is the district shall pay $36,000 to $4,000 per month. And what that does is cover the janitorial, which is our building facility tax time, garbage, cameras, elevator costs, fiber, property insurance, general administration. So this is not a random number. We did take all of these costs and break them down. We do have that room in there. One thing it does not include is any of the debt of this building. And again, this isn't something that we've singled out in the fire department budget because we are paying it as a greater organization. So then moving it as to a line item in their budget in 2027. One thing that is not built in is like an inflation cost. Because of course, we all know garbage and fiber go up every year. So I don't know if you want to set a flat amount within that range, if you want to set a flat amount in that range and then add a very low inflationary cost, or any changes to the debt. But 7, 8, and 9 are all related to that fee. And I'm happy to answer any questions with that.
So just, I think it's just a typo, but it's 3,600 to 4,000.
Yeah.
Okay. My only question on it really revolves around, that takes care of this firehouse here. What about Bethel's on?
So Bethel, excuse me, Bethel is intending or planning on donating the entire facility to the district itself. So we would be responsible for utilities and maintenance as the district. There would not be a lease back to the city of Cuff. So because we're a shared facility here, it makes it real difficult to make that, treat it like the rest of our assets through this process. Where Bethel has already committed to, yep, we'll give you the building, we'll take ourselves on it, and then we would be responsible for the ongoing maintenance and utilities directly through the district without a lease agreement.
And that's included in the 3,600 to 4,000, or that would be?
That would be additional utility costs for the district.
Okay.
This topic is in particular germane to this building, this shared space.
Well, I think there should be something in there. I mean, I don't know that we want to keep it that same rate across the board as everything's gonna go up. So I think there should be something in there about a percentage change. I'm not sure what that should be, but I think we all know that every year, everything keeps going up. So to just keep it there, I don't want to see us at year 3 falling behind.
No, I agree.
I agree with that.
Is there a percentage you could recommend to us, Finance Director Darcy?
I would maybe say, 1 to 2%
Okay,
would be,
sufficient.
yeah.
Well, I guess when you say 1 to 2%, I mean, we're next, we're gonna be talking about the budget, and we're talking about, we gotta increase it at least 9% or whatever it is. I mean, why are we saying only 1% there?
Well, you're not, a big driver, I think, of like our budget would be more like personnel and things like that, not just the building costs. So this is one little thing out of our whole budget, you know, and we're not talking about, street projects or, buying big equipment and stuff. It's just the few things that go into the building. So, I mean, if you wanted to do a higher amount, you could.
No, I'm not necessarily advocating for that. I'm just
You know.
asking the question. I mean,
Yeah, I just don't think the costs associated with this one little item would be much more than that. You could go as high as a 3%, but
Well, if you did 2% each year, you're building up, so you're actually. So I think that would be,
yeah, so if you did 2% on, say you started at 4,000, you'd be at your math really quick. What, $4,080, and then you take 2% of $4,080. It would grow that way.
comfortable with 2%.
Yeah.
But I do think there should be some
right, yeah. I just-
number in there. I agree. So whether it's 2% or whatever, I'm.
Thank you, Kevin.
So
I
I
agree
don't,
with
sorry, go ahead, Kevin.
No, that's all right, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I agree with that. My question is, I guess, as you compound interest, things do tend to rise quickly. And I'm wondering if there's not something that we should, I don't know if you can write it in the agreement or whatnot, to reevaluate it. And I don't know how often you do that, if it's a year or 2 years, or when you do that to get a more, I mean, at some point it's gonna be, you keep compounding 2% on 2% on 2%, it's gonna get astronomical at some point. And I can't imagine that the fees for those services are gonna go up extremely high, but they are gonna rise. That's just my thought.
I think we all gotta keep in mind too, we're not creating a new company so we can succeed and prosper and grow.
Right.
We're creating a company so we can serve in an efficient manner. Basically, the
Right.
way I'm thinking about it is Bethel was spending $1. We've been spending $3 on fire. Now Bethel's bringing their $1 and giving it to us, plus another 50 cents on top of their $1 to pay for the stuff that they didn't have. They had none of this stuff. So really it's, they're not gonna get any more than they were getting. Each budget won't be getting any more than they were getting unless their governing bodies say they can have more, or they can show a need for it. But again, Bethel came over, the JPA for a 2-year, was beneficial for them, not for us. We're being benevolent, but we have all the right tools and stuff to do the job. So, but there's no gratuity here. It's because it's a need that we're helping serve. So again, they're bringing their buck plus another 50 cents or 75 cents. It was based on, the formula overall was per capita, and then what they
Capacity.
and capacity population. So if their fluctuation changes, the formula changes at all. I mean, again, we're not doing this to be more successful and more prosperous. We're doing this to serve better, and it's not for free. I mean, they knew that in the beginning. If you were there during some of the earlier talks, they were wringing their hands like, what are we going to do? Not like, oh, poor us, but like, we've come to it. They waited too long to reach out for help is what they really did. Because they were down to 3 firefighters and a chief that was ready to retire. So they had nothing to really come with. So this is how this all got, came to fruition. But I'm all about, pro efficiency and being able to serve. But we need a fair dollar for the fair amount of work we're putting into it.
Yeah, I don't see it as us trying to make a dime at all.
And not at all. No, that's not,
I think
yeah.
that we can also reevaluate if we see that 2%
I agree.
is too much and we just don't need that, then when we.
And they
make
might bring it to our
adjustments.
attention as well. They'll say, we have
Right.
some different thoughts on this. And
Right, yeah. I think that's a good.
In order, yeah, so the other thing for me is, in order to reflect the true cost of a fire district, you have to include increases like that.
Right.
Otherwise it just gets, yeah, it's small, but it just gets buried, and then the next thing you know, you're behind, and it's. So I don't think we're settled on 2%. I don't know.
All right. right, so again, we didn't put anything for the debt, and then we have this scheduled to pay in 2027. So all three of those are related to the space fee. So utilities, that will be, the district will pay their proportion based on their space in the building. For water and sewer, the city currently does not charge itself for water and sewer, so there's no change there. And then bulk water, currently the city does not charge itself for bulk water, but they will continue to report to public works as they do now, so.
I have a question on that then. The city does not charge itself, but what about should the district be charged for something?
I guess that would be a question. I'd
We're
send
drawing
back to you.
we have a line of delineation here. Now that we have a district now being born, and the city didn't charge for it, but should the district be paying their dues when, especially when water is a big talk about around town here? If they're loading up their tanker trucks to go do service or, I mean, I think they should be charged for that stuff. We've charged them for other things all the way down to legal fees and, paper clips. We should be charging them for water and sewer. And the citizens are paying for it, and I can see a lot of torches and pitchforks coming our way if we don't do something. I mean, being realistic anyway.
Is that the direction of the whole group? Is there consensus?
I don't know. I would agree with what Kevin's saying. And for the other reason is it's just simply, I mean, the taxpayer's paying for it no matter what. So it's not, again, it just.
Well,
it
here's,
gives us a
here's a-
closer number for the district alone, for fire operations. I mean, rather than. Go ahead, Joe.
my contrary argument, and I don't disagree with what Kevin says, and I wrestle with whether or not I should just say I agree 100% with Kevin or I shouldn't. My question is that at some point, so if you're charging the district for water, and maybe this is something, again, you revisit later if we get bigger and have more cities. But if you're charging the district for water, at some point, if they do become a taxing district, then you're charging the district, which in turn is going to pay the charge of taxpayers. So either way, like you say, they end up paying for it. The only question I would have is, I guess, I mean, since you have Bethel, you can say, well, they're getting our water for free, and that's what some people are going to say anyway, because that's just what some people are going to say. And I've seen people argue about public works because they actually sell water, I think, to people in those tanker trucks, but then they say we need to conserve water. And then people are mad because we're selling that water to some of those trucks. It's sometimes some people are just never going to be happy either way. But if the taxing district becomes its own taxing district, and then you're selling them the water, at that point, does it make sense or does it not? Because either way, the people are going to get charged for it, and is that going to actually cost the people more, or is it just extra administrative work that doesn't need to be done? That's kind of where I'm like, where do we go with this? And does it matter? That's just kind of my 2 cents where I'm like, I don't know what the answer is to that, to be honest with you.
To me, it's a utility, a legal fee, whether it's electricity or natural gas. If they're gonna be paying rent and stuff on their square footage and their, store, for their building, portion of the building, I don't think the consumption of water would be any different. It might be minute, but still, it's a cost of doing business as a district.
Well, it's probably not too minute. I mean, to put out fires, you need water, it's, so, well, and I kind of lean towards what Kevin's saying. It's a cost of doing business, but if that means then that the fire district is gonna say, okay, well, we spent $20,000 on water this year. Now we need $20,000 more from St. Francis and Bethel, like, what's the point? Like kind of like what you're saying, Joe. So I guess I'm not sure how much water a fire station uses, probably a lot, but Bethel has city water, right?
They do have a hydrant in town.
A hydrant, and is that ours, or
No.
they have their own water sewer system? Oh, wow,
Well,
okay.
Wastewater system and some version of a water system. I
Oh.
think it's all produced through well, but.
Oh, does it
It's-
work well?
We'll find out.
I just assumed they were on ours. Our
The
water.
only thing I don't want to throw a fly in the ointment here, in particular with bulk water. So we currently don't charge our mutual aid partners for use of water in an emergency. So if that's the direction that we're given, we're gonna have to figure out what that looks like and restructure all of our on-weight agreements that if they're using St. Francis water, I need a report on usage and amounts and bill back to our mutual aid partners for that usage as well. So I don't wanna overcomplicate it, but if we're talking about the bulk water piece is the one piece where I get a little bit concerned on it. How do we do this accurately at 3 in the morning when we have 5 or 6 departments that are coming for water? So,
Well, and the last thing you want is firefighters trying to decide which hydrant should I use
right.
based on who's paying for it or what's cheaper or this. I totally get that, but I guess, do we have an idea of how much water is used by the fire department in a year?
It varies pretty dramatically, and it also varies based on neighbor usage, right? So if there was a fire just on this side of county, the closest hydrant is obviously Public Works,
Yep.
right? So then it's, how do we account for the amount of water that went out of the city versus the amount of water that went into the city? We do report the best that we can. The advantage that we have on all of our pumping apparatus is we have a gallons used gauge. So it's really easy when we're the ones that are flowing the primary water. Some of these are guesstimates when it's going down to Oak Grove. For example, the large house down at Viking and Seventh that burned earlier this year, right? There's a tremendous amount of water usage. I wanna say, I reported back to Paul that we may have used 30,000 gallons of water from St. Francis, and it came from other cities as well. But some of those are best guesses as well. But he needs those for DNR reporting purposes.
I was just thinking of a percentage added, not, we didn't have to get down to,
Yeah.
rocket science.
Yep.
Just
Just wanted
a,
to make sure that was in the ether as we have the discussion, so.
And I think there will be some residents, because I get a phone call every time there's a police officer's vehicle in another city nearby, to let me know that we're paying for somebody else's police, even though they also help us. And I always tell that person, you can call Todd and figure out, how much mutual aid we've gotten as to what we've given out and figure out the percentage of who's paying for what. But the information's there, I guess, somewhere if you want it. But I think too, with the water increase currently, you're going to get people saying that yes, they should pay for water, because I think a lot of people aren't going to understand necessarily that that's not necessarily a gain, but having somebody else pay for the water sounds better. And my only concern is it's like, I get what Dave's saying too, and to accurately track and then who's what, and again, emergency situation, which hydrant do we use? Not that it matters, because I think the firefighters are going to instinctually do what they need to do to probably, get the fire out sooner than later. But I think too, it's, are we adding administrative work that's not necessary to be charging them for water, or is that, where are we at with that? Because to me, that's just an extra cost and extra labor that's not going to necessarily benefit anybody. And like Amy's saying too, well, we spent $20,000 extra on water. Now we got to charge the people $20,000 extra. You're just adding administrative things and more things to keep track of. Not that it's a bad thing, but it does kind of. I don't know if it sounds better to the taxpayer, I think, to say, yes, we're going to charge you for water, but realistically, I don't think it's beneficial financially or administratively to do that. So I would say no on that, if that makes sense to people.
I'm just wondering out loud here, what if we just did, I just throwing numbers, I have no idea what the number is. If we just said 50,000 gallons a year kind of number, what I hate to see is just, we create something where we can't reflect the true cost, and having zero water charge is kind of hidden. And I agree with you. I don't want to sit here. Every truck comes in, we got a label. How that gets real petty and it gets real time consuming. So I don't want to see that, but I don't know. Dave, is there some way to just, would there be any way of doing a fair, just annual amount that would?
Yeah, I think the simplest way, because you're going to have potentially wide variation from year to year, month to month, even department to department on water usage, that if if it's the city council's direction to encumber some of those costs back, to do a flat annual fee for the fire district. Because the other thing that I would hate to see happen is for a neighboring department to defer to a further hydrantful way because they're not sure how much they're going to use or how much it's. So I also don't want to create some apprehension when we need to do everything we can to eliminate that apprehension. So if this is something that the council feels strongly about, my recommendation would just have it be a flat user fee on an annual basis, with the understanding that some years you're ahead and some years you're behind. But at least if that's something that the constituency feels passionate about, you can go back and say, well, we're getting something that we weren't getting before, right?
Yeah.
So there's a concession there, but that would be from a management perspective to try and track everybody's gallons used over the course of a year. Then throw a pivot chart over the last 10 years of history or usage. I think a flat rate, a flat annual fee, if you will, call it an access fee or something.
I like that idea. I don't know.
Me too. Yeah, the last thing you want is to create confusion during
Right.
a scene. So Darcy, how much does 50,000 gallons of water cost?
I'm looking for my,
You knew we were gonna ask, weren't you? You were already looking
She's
for
like,
it.
I know where this is going.
if you wanna go, let me look and I will get that.
Okay,
answer.
great.
Fair enough.
So to throw this out there too, and just so everybody's clear, I'm not questioning the integrity of the fire board or district either. But if we're concerned about, I mean, if you're giving money for water use too, because it's either way, it's coming out of the budget, but you're giving the district more money then too, to just say, here's money for water. Obviously it's a flat fee. And if they stay under that, then they still have that money too in their budget. But to me, it's just more of an administrative headache. I don't think you need to even do that, honestly. But I don't think when I say I'm not questioning the integrity, I don't think Dave's gonna say, hey, I got $50,000 in water money I didn't use. I'm gonna go do this,
Couldn't you say the same for $50,000, $5,000 in accounting fee money that I didn't use, or they didn't use,
Right.
the fiscal agent didn't put in a full 1,000 hours or on something, so they, again, it's,
Right.
I agree with Dave, there's kind of a high and a low on it. I was just looking for some accountability. We're charging the district rent, we're charging them legal fees, we're charging them admin fees, it's fee. Again, we're just trying to make them stand alone, and so it's probably better for them to know this is what our true cost is by throwing something in there. I wasn't trying to stir up the hornets here, but.
No, I didn't think you were either. I didn't take it that way either, Kevin. I'm just trying to look at it from all angles here too. And I think, like, is this something that, and I don't know if this is a Dave or a Kate question, but if we expand in the future, because the whole purpose of this is to hopefully make it expandable. That was the whole kind of idea. And I think in time that's going to happen when we don't know, if it even does, but if it's expandable, is that something that, again, we want to kind of get ahead of it so that if there is an issue, I mean, and we have less votes, say we have 2 votes out of 6, and then the non-partial person, that we want to get ahead of it so people aren't going to say, well, you're not charging for water now. Is this something we want to put in there just so we have something in there for expandable reasons to where we don't end up getting hosed in the future, so to speak?
That's why I think it's good. That's why I think it's good to have this place marker.
Placeholder, yeah.
Placeholder.
Okay.
there.
Darcy has something to tell us.
Yep.
Go Darcy.
Oh,
Yes.
Darcy has her hand up. Joe.
50,000 gallons for the year would be $449.
It's
What a
something.
deal.
I think it's worth having that placeholder there. I just really do.
You won't be getting a hose for $400, Joe.
Oh, good one. Good boy.
That's taking that times the bulk water price.
And we
Okay.
do have,
Kate, I just to reiterate, that would be $449 a year.
Okay.
50,000 gallons.
Okay.
Well, they did think they used 33,000 on that one house, so 50,000 is probably pretty low on what they used.
Yeah, I'd say if you combine training and actual incident responses, we're probably closer to give or take 100,000 gallons of water. Ballpark. We do have, so with Isani, we do have an addendum to our mutual agreement with Isani that for emergency response, we don't charge them for water. But if they're going to refill after a training, they have their own key fob, or however Paul has it set up. And we do charge them for any water from the water tower that isn't directly attributed to emergency response. So I'd have to go back, Paul set the rate, so I can't speak to him intelligently at this moment. But again, to Joe's point, and others have mentioned it, I just struggle with how do we administrate that, how do we account for that? Administrate it appropriately, not create a deterrence when people are at the most need. So-
Well, I'm not talking about mutual aid water. I was just talking about district water. A one time, a place,
Yep.
like the mayor said, a placeholder for the district only. If we're gonna go to Now Then or Isani or something, it's business as usual, always before it's,
I just wanna make sure that.
you bet. No, I wasn't thinking of, let me swipe your card before I turn on this hydrant. That's not what I'm talking.
And if you took out the mutual aid responses.
No, I wasn't, that never crossed my mind.
Usage. But again, subject to change on
Yeah.
what the world throws at us.
I don't know, do we have consensus pretty much on 50,000 gallon placeholder for now? I mean, it can always change or blah, blah, blah. I don't know.
I think
I think
it's
50 is
something.
way low if you're gonna do it.
Well, Dave's thinking, yeah, it depends upon if you're talking mutual aid water. If he's talking mutual aid water, he said closer to 100, otherwise he's
No,
guessing
I was
50.
not talking mutual aid water. I'm just talking to the district.
I think we just, me personally, I think we should stick with 50,000.
I do
It's a
too.
token, but it's,
I do
at
too.
least we can say to the taxpayers that are worried about the water bill that we are getting paid for it, but we don't have an accurate way of calculating it. So this is what we came up with. I don't know. To me, that makes sense. And there would be no confusion then on where should I get water during a scene? I don't want that at all. So,
Well, there should never be any confusion on that, I don't
Mhm.
think, and I don't think that's, like you say, mutual aid, I don't think should be like a flat fee if you're gonna do it,
Mhm.
is not bad, but then as the district grows, you readjust that or whatever if you can, that's kind of where I think, I don't know.
because none of the cities are charging each other for mutual aid water or calls in any way.
Or work comp
Yeah.
or anything.
None of that.
If I could make a recommendation, I would call a water access fee of $500 annually. That's a little bit north of 50,000 gallons. We know what it's for. It's gonna ebb and flow a little bit, top or bottom of that number. I think that's a number that's easy enough for the district to.
I agree.
I
That's
think
fine.
that's great.
I think we have consensus on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so my only question on utilities, so district to pay its percentage portion, that's just, we don't have separate meters, do we? I mean, it's just,
No, and we already account for a percentage in our budgets, so
Yeah.
that's where that number comes
Okay.
directly out of it, is what we've already articulated within those line items that are current budget. Instead of going directly to Connexus and our share will go to the city to pay that expense.
All right. 13 and 14 are tied together. So 13 is just, and 14 are about building maintenance. So again, with the proportion of the building, that's gonna be basically district use versus shared use. So we share the fitness center, we share mother's room, there's some shared space. So what it's looking like is 100% of the maintenance for the district in the district space. Then we will share with them between the city and the district 50-50, any building maintenance in shared space, and then the city would cover 100% of our space. That's identified as city space. And then overall, any district improvements, if they want to go up there and start moving walls or doing any major repairs or alterations, that they do have to have the city's approval, being that we're essentially building owner and AKA landlord. So, so any questions on those?
I have a question on the building maintenance and the maintenance budget. we're putting so much away every year for building maintenance, and even though it's the same source of funds. How does that?
You're talking about the CIP kind of,
No, I'm talking about the building maintenance fund that we have. Because the whole purpose of the building maintenance fund, and I got this whole speech written out for the next meeting for my council member report. To whether or not you like it or not, we'll find out. But just kind of talking about the building maintenance fund that was created. I mean, we build these multi-million-dollar buildings, and we had no way to maintain them. We didn't plan for that in the past, many, many years ago. But there's now a building maintenance fund to be more responsible owners, I would say, and stewards of the taxpayers' money to maintain these buildings. If the district, they're responsible for 100%, but it's still, I mean, I don't know how to say it. It's like you're kind of playing, it's a shell game to a point. Right now we're separating it, and at some point, if it does become its own taxing authority, then they would have to be responsible for 100% of that and account for that in the taxes. But as of right now, how does that affect our building maintenance fund? Or, I mean, we're just moving things around, I guess, and I get that, but it's just, I don't know, that confuses me. I mean, we kind of talked about it earlier, Kate, but.
the Kate or Darcy question, I don't know.
Yeah, mayor and council. So I think this one is tough. I think day-to-day maintenance, if there comes a time where they want to redo their floor or they want to upgrade their cabinets, right? That is the kind of maintenance that would be theirs. But when you start looking at the roof, the windows, does the city want 100% of that as shared space, or do you want to split that 50-50 with the district? So I think that's where, even in the use agreement, we're gonna have to get little bit more granular as, right? Maintenance to me would be, the bathroom door's broken, so the district has to fix their bathroom door. We would do the same on first floor with City Hall. But if the mother's room or the fitness room is broken, right, everybody uses that in the building, so maybe that's a 50-50. But when it comes to these larger pieces, there really is a question, because it is blurry, is the district going to be able to afford 50% of the roof of this building? Probably not very easily.
So I think there's two different pieces to this too, Joe. So we have a line item budget for building maintenance within our budget. What Kate is describing, we have, a chair that breaks or a sink that fails. We take that out of our operational line item budget for building maintenance. There's also the building fund, which covers some of those larger expenses like roof replacement. Is that correct, Darcy?
Oh, sorry.
Is that correct? So we have a building maintenance or building repair line item in our budget. In our operational budget every year, we carve out money for building maintenance and repair.
Yep.
Okay, that's for when a doorknob breaks or we have to replace a sink or carpet needs to get shampooed, but there's also the building fund. Does the fire department now contribute to part of that larger building fund, or is that just a part of the city
That's part of the
operation
city-
as a whole?
That's the part of the city tax levy is designated to that. So if you really wanted to take part of that, it's just like we're splitting up capital. So we're splitting up capital equipment right now, and I'm coming down with a number of how much capital equipment is actually gonna be now his, and how to split that up. To do that on the building maintenance, that's gonna be that's gonna be tough, because that money that goes in there is not only for this building, it's also for police, public works, and other buildings, that aren't
Right.
just enterprise related. So.
Well, and the major building expenses, well, it's easy now because there's probably none
Right.
right now, but the major building expenses, we should take care of those as the landlord. Right?
Mayor Council, you can set it up either way. We could ask the district to contribute, or those major expenses, we should also be if I was renting an apartment, I would be getting a little bit per month to put towards my greater fund and not be responsible for 50% of the roof once the roof needs to be done. So it's all in how you manage that. We can share it at a flat rate. We can assume it's part of our monthly cost, or we can just use that as part of our capital that we set aside, knowing it's the taxpayers are paying for it either way.
Well, I think I might have got ahead of myself there too, because I fail to recognize that if we do grow, I mean, as of right now with these two cities, we're responsible for our own stuff right now anyway, and I'm probably getting ahead of myself, because if we do grow, you do again want that placeholder with the district so that you're not covering all those costs as St. Francis, I guess, so to speak. So having it as a placeholder is not a bad idea either. So
Mayor
I
and
do
council
apologize
though,
for that.
and Joe, I do want to caution though, that say we take on City A and they have three $13 million fire departments, right? Their budget is going to reflect that. We're also going to be paying that. So,
Right.
so there's also just that general, you know, what are we paying for now, but what are we paying for later? I think if you get another city that has 1 or 3 or 5 buildings, you're gonna have to come back to the table on some of these questions anyway.
Okay.
But yeah, do we want the district to be responsible for any big repairs, or do we assume that under the city and just that is part of the use fee and
I mean, I think it's the same old thing, a placeholder of some sort, and I'm more comfortable with, I mean, the city is the owner already. And the district, so to speak, is renting. I'd be more comfortable with just building something in, because I'd rather, let's just say the roof needs to be replaced 10 years from now. I don't think it should be that council has to go out and they're looking for bids and we're going out looking for, I don't want to, I think that gets really messy. I think it's better that the city just stays the owner and releasing it out to the district.
Okay.
So that, I don't know if that, I don't want to speak for everybody. That's how I feel.
I kind of, you were a property owner or in the real estate per se, didn't you have like a triple net where they're, yeah, like you said, you had a building, but, and like Kate said, when all the rent receipts come in, you still gotta have a little extra for your profit and then some to put away to refurbish what's already being depleted or depreciated. So I agree with you about the placeholder part. Again, what's the number? You know,
I'm not as concerned, believe it or not, I'm not as concerned about the number, but I am concerned about it being a placeholder there and acknowledging that.
because a year from now, we're gonna have meetings, the district will have a meeting, or district and the council have meetings. And say, how do we do? Let's look at our report card here. What worked, what didn't work, where was the money at? Here's where we were long, here's where we were short. But I agree with the placeholder, and maybe it needs no dollar amount for the first year. This is our, like I say, we still got our training wheels on. Seeing how it goes.
Can I make,
Sure.
if you're a landlord, you know, that's part of your rent. So maybe that's part of what you put into the lease, you know,
I agree.
because to split it out and say, well, we're putting $50,000 away, but 1,000 of that a year is coming from the district. Well, then what we end up having to do is we have to transfer $1,000 to the district. They hold it. And then we ask for it back at some point. I don't think that works. I think, you know, I think it works better as saying, we'll add, you know, maybe $25 a month to that lease payment. Does that make sense?
Does. I like that
Mhm.
idea. Yes.
You know, and not have that designation of,
Yes.
Yeah.
and we would just continue to do building maintenance the way we would, the building fund the way we are doing.
Correct. And I think we should put some dollar amount with it. I don't care if it's $25 or $50, just some amount so that it's a knowledge placeholder, not sitting in with a zero, so that we're aware that 10, 20 years from now,
That may have to may have to change in
Mhm.
future lease agreements.
But you're saying it should be part of the lease amount, that 3,600
yeah,
to 4,000,
you-
not like a separate thing.
If you're a renter, you're not gonna say, okay, here's my lease payment and here is another $50 for maintenance of
Maintenance, yeah.
the building.
All included.
For you to save up for later, yeah. I agree.
We have agreement on that?
Okay. All right, so 16 kind of starts to jump off with the employment and one-time separation movements. So this is, first one is regarding the employees. So you're aware, all of our current employees will need to follow the formal process, do a resignation with the city of St. Francis, and then they will be rehired with the district. So you will see in one of our upcoming meetings here, the list of all of the names. But as employment law goes, it does have to be formal, and we do have to officially terminate them from the city and rehire them as a district. One of the things after sitting down a few times that we've talked about is a startup transfer. So Dave can walk over to the bank and he can open an account, but they're gonna need some money to make it an actual bank account. So what we looked at with, basically pieces of the finance that will be important until that first transfer in January is about $10,000. Would be a good amount to kind of forward this to open that bank account and allow him to have the ability to set everything up. So I'll stop there. Any questions?
And that is going to be taken off of our first payment to them in January. So we're just giving that to them to start up their account.
And when the city of St. Francis makes its first payment to the fire district, that 10,000 is deducted.
Yes.
All right, so back in 2000, I think it was 23, Dars, 23. The city received public service funds from the state. It was a one-time payment. Chief Schweiger and Schmidt and I sat down and we balanced that out. The portion of it was taken out for our wellness programs, and then the two chiefs split the balance of 150 apiece. Right now, they are sitting at about 79,000, so we would transfer the balance of the public service funds, which would be subject to change if they spend any between now and the end of the year. Gambling funds, so these are guided by, correct me if I'm wrong, Darcy, state statute. We cannot transfer those funds to the district. They are for equipment, so those will basically stay with the city. Para, the city has no accounts that will be transferred. So right now, all of the funds go directly to Para. Dave is working diligently with Para, trying to get all of his accounts set up. And basically, when the employees transfer, those amounts will transfer and instead of getting paid out of St. Francis's paychecks, they'll now be paid out of the district paychecks. So there's nothing that we need to directly do as a city for Para.
What happens with the extra money that's at Para? It's because, how is that getting transferred to the district account? I don't understand that.
I guess I'm confused. Extra money at Para?
Well, so just everything is getting transferred from
The account.
Para
Yes.
to district Para.
As we understand, I've spoken with a lot of state and federal entities over the last couple of weeks, and Para has been the hardest to get a hold of because their phone number goes to a voicemail box and you get to wait for them to call you back. So, which I found interesting. But anyway, as we understand, once they have accounted for the joint powers agreement and the bylaws, which the fire board approved, then we can work on the process of changing ownership of the St. Francis Volunteer Retirement Fund to the Rum River Fire District Volunteer Fund. Everybody will still have an account of their years of service because the SVF fund is completely and totally transportable. We do have a question about the deferred members, if we continue to hang on to the deferred members accounts or if we pay out the deferred members just to make it a clean separation. We believe we can hang on to the deferred members just under the different name because we would still be the ones responsible for processing that. But as we understand, once we have all of our documentation, it's simply changing the ownership of the account from St. Francis to Rum River and accounting for everybody's years of service as we move forward. Did I answer your question?
I think so.
And then when we fill out our FA1 form for state aid, we'll again have to present our bylaws and our joint powers agreement to the state. So Bethel's 2% money and St. Francis's 2% money goes into the district volunteer pension account.
Okay. So what happens with, does the city still donate $500 per firefighter per year towards
still an
that?
elective
So we
contribution.
will, what was that?
There's still an elective contribution, yes.
But mayor and council, that will come from the district. It will not come from the city. The city no longer has the department.
Okay.
And we fully intend on continuing to budget for that elective contribution every year.
Okay, and then can I back up
Yeah.
to number 16, employment separation?
Yes,
So the current employees have to resign and they will be rehired from the district.
Yep.
Just like automatically.
yep, as
Basically.
accounted for in the joint powers agreement.
Okay, so with that being said, the five of us, we're no longer going to be getting information when you hire someone, when you terminate someone, when someone is, you know, like.
Correct.
Not, we're no longer part of that. So we don't. So I mean, are you going to continue all of those things? Like you have to live in the 6 mile radius.
Yep.
You have to
It's a
have
10-minute
your call.
radius. We can't do.
What was it?
It's 10 minutes. We can't do distance anymore.
Oh, okay. That's it, yeah. You know, and you have to make your call volumes
Yep.
and you have to do all of that. You have to live here.
Yep.
Okay. So I'm wondering about Captain Sturtzel.
Yep.
In like April, you came to us and said, hey, our fire inspector is going to be moving with his family in June. And you came with a bunch of options. And one of the options you suggested was that he stay on Mondays and Tuesdays, I think you said, and sleep here in the station. And he could still probably make his numbers.
Yep.
And we said, we don't want that choice. But I've noticed that Evan's car is here on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday nights a lot. So I was wondering why we never saw his resignation.
Because he's still the legal owner of a property in St. Francis. They did just accept an offer on their house and he is resigning this year,
Okay,
but he still has an address in the city where he sleeps. We don't tell people they can't stay here. And I understand the logistics of why, because his house was, what do they call it, modeled or staged, staged for the realtor, that he didn't want to be in and out and have things moving around. So he still has a legal address within the city. I can't fire him because he hasn't broken a policy. So he's making his numbers. I can't hold him accountable for not making his numbers. So I don't have any authority under our current policy to address it, other than I told him when you are closed on your property and you're no longer a property owner within the city, I either need a rental agreement, a separation, or a leave.
so when his house sells, he's resigning.
He'll either resign or take a personal leave to the end of the year, which again, if he says he's gonna look for an apartment, which I don't think he would, right? But under policy, he would have the ability to take a personal leave. He's not gonna acquire any hours. He's not gonna acquire any pension. So I don't know why he would. But
But then when the district starts in 2026, right, we're talking.
he's not applying to be rehired.
He won't, okay.
No.
Okay. And then, I guess that's all I have for now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Number 21 is the CIP, Capital Improvement Funds. So right now, the fire department has roughly 435,000. Again, this is, if they spend anything between now and the end of the year, that number would change, but that is what we would be looking at for a transfer if we did it right now. That is all of the funds set aside for trucks, major equipment, and that. So ESST, which is also in our personnel policy, all of our sick time. So the city would look to transfer 50% of our full-time employee balances for the last pay period of the year. 50% is what would be paid out if they were to leave. So that is the actual funds. However, since they're not leaving, transferring it over to the district and then starting that balance there. ESST for part-time employees, the city does not pay out or transfer any funds for part-time employees for ESST. And then to kind of tie into that, 24 talks about vacation with the two full-time employees. So transferring 100% of their employee balances for the last pay period of the year over to the district is. Because if they were to leave the city, we would be paying those out. And again, instead of paying them out, we would be transferring them over. So any question on those 3 items?
I got a question then, considering 2 full-time employees, then will they be able to carry over and still be vested for what they've been accruing so far as their vacation and whatnot?
Yes, so, and if I misspeak here, so whatever my vacation balance is at the end of the year, Captain Kaiser, if we were to resign, we would be owed that balance
Right.
as settlement for the termination.
But after many years of service, you've acquired so many hours per blah, blah,
So in our
blah.
policy manual that the fire board approved, we're keeping the same vacation accrual that we have been at,
Okay,
unless there's a year of service change, where you
sure.
would go to the next accrual level, which does not apply to me nor Captain Kaiser's. Yeah, I think both of us would stay at the same accrual rate. So,
Okay.
yeah,
It's
nothing.
not like you
lost
gotta
there.
reset.
Correct.
Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
All right.
Can I back up just for 1 second? I just have one more
Yeah.
question. You said that you can't tell Captain Sturzel not to stay here. I mean, I feel like the places for people to sleep there are for when there's
Sure.
storms, reasons that you want to staff the station. That's what they're meant for. I mean, I guess it seems strange to me that we would let an employee sleep here for personal reasons versus reasons that you requested. And that just seems kind of off to me. Like, what if everybody wants to do it? Like,
Well, they
think
could.
about
I don't have a policy in place that says they can. And it's not just firefighters. We've had police officers that have been in short turnarounds and have stayed at the fire station before. Right? So we could certainly look at putting a policy together. We just don't have one now. So if I'm telling him that any employee for that matter, that you can't be here, I have no policy to back it up.
okay.
So that,
I'm just thinking that maybe we should, because like I said, what if everybody wants to do it? Well, we can't just house
I think we
everybody.
would certainly address it if it was everybody.
Right.
But for somebody who has been a dedicated employee, that has his house staged for sale, we know he's not gonna be continuing with the organization. He's not the only person that's spent the night here since this building has been in place, certainly not the last person that did it at the old building either, and certainly not only employees from the fire department, so. If that's something that
The district would have to talk about that, wouldn't they?
the
Maybe that
council
should
can
be our
certainly
number
direct
one.
me to craft a policy for the remainder of this year, or we can have the fire district draft a policy and implement that in our
I
policy.
don't know, it just seems too vague that there's nothing and it,
We've
I
had
don't-
firefighters that have gone through relationship changes and needed a temporary place to stay. I would certainly rather have them be here. First of all, they're here and they're not being paid and they're 20 feet away from emergency equipment if there were a call, right? So I would call that an unexpensed benefit back to the city. But certainly we want people to be here, right? As I said before, the challenge isn't getting them out the door once they're here, it's getting them here and then getting them out the door, right? So I want to see people hanging out here as much as possible. Do I want 27 firefighters sleeping here without a permanent residence? No. Right? I also understand selling a previous property. If you have your house staged and ready to go, last thing you want to do is worry about cleaning it every time another showing pops up, right? So I don't know that I would consider what he's been doing an abuse. Again, I don't have a policy that precludes it, so I don't know what I would be enforcing.
We can certainly address it as a new policy though.
Absolutely, we can.
Well, I can see
And-
what Amy's saying as far as if you had 6 guys that's selling their house and blah, 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 blah. So maybe it's just time for, we're opening a new chapter and this
Yep.
will be chapter 1.
I'm more than happy to have that conversation. I don't have anything in place to enforce it today.
Sure.
Okay. Item number 26. So this has to do with the vehicles that are under lease. So the district will assume the lease payments that we are using for our fleet manager. And then 27, donating the vehicles. And I guess even 28 is related to vehicles as well. So we do have one tanker 2 was purchased with federal block grant money, which is an agreement between the city and the county. So I'm currently working with the county to understand federal funds never expire on equipment. So at what point are we allowed to donate it? Do we have to sell it first? So we're working through some logistics. That's why that is the one vehicle that is pulled out of just the generic leasing and donations. But that is basically we'll have a full inventory and a resolution would be required for our auditors with the agreement. But right now, that's what we're looking at for vehicles. So then number 29 is other fire equipment. So one of the suggestions from our auditors was again, donate from the city what the city will not be replacing. So the day room furniture, right? The tables and chairs, if something breaks or in 10 years they want a new set because they don't like the color of the cushions or something, that is on them. That is not a function of the city, and that is not on our auditor assets, our supply lists at all. So that other fire equipment and then all of the small equipment for the fire department that isn't vehicles takes a lot to run that one. And then 30, donating the furnishings. So that was part of that. So that is kind of the day-to-day or one-time things that we need to transfer for the really equipment and staffing. And then just in the overall, the payment dates to the district. So Darcy and I talked quite a bit about when the funds come in and when taxes come in and how things are moved around, and feel that January 15th and July 15th would be the 2 points in which we would make a transfer to the district. And then we really talked about some of the fees as well. And what are those other revenues? So one thing the city needs to determine with the burn permits is, we're about to put forward the fee schedule for next year. So, is the city setting the rates and keeping those revenues? Is the district setting the rates and keeping the revenues? And how you really want to see that. Currently that is a fee that is in our fee schedule. And once the fees come in, Darcy, where do they go?
It's just general fund.
Yeah, so just in our general fund, we want to allow the district to keep, as their minor fees, everything sometimes helps. So do we want the district to just control and receive back all of their revenues from burn permits? So that is the last item on here. And then just, a note at the bottom that council, please be aware that the accounts payable will have to do kind of a year-end reconciliation. And we're planning that first meeting in February because we'll have a lot of year-end with payroll. Payroll doesn't end, exact, and expenses and bills don't end exact. So at that first meeting in February will be a one-time kind of true up and reconciliation of all of that year-end. And then it'll be a one-time because then we'll be on a year-to-year. It'll just be the district. You won't have this overlap where things are kind of messy. So, but any questions on 31, 32?
So Bethel, most likely would follow these same payment dates, the district kind of thing, or?
Excuse me. That's the intent, yes.
Okay. And when it comes, I don't really know enough about the burn permits. I get them, but how often is fire staff filling them out versus Lisa or Danielle filling them out or? what?
Fire staff exclusively.
Exclusively?
Yep.
Got it. Okay. And
Yeah.
does Bethel have a process over there separate?
I don't believe they do. At least we've never been asked to process a burn permit in the city of Bethel, and they probably have fairly limited areas where they could do a permitted burn. The other fees that we are able to collect, and it's driven through the county, so any licensed home daycare is required to have a fire inspection. And that comes with a $50 fee. That currently goes, much like the burn permits, back to the general fund. So those would be the two things that you would have to make a determination on where those funds would go.
But you're on the fire district. The fire district's exclusively handling it, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, I think it should just stay with the fire district.
I would agree.
That's maybe a couple $100 a year.
And you can't get burn permit at the hardware store anymore?
Tim hasn't done burn permits for 5-6 years.
I'm hoping, that's another discussion, but I'm
Hoping
hoping
the
the
online
online,
piece,
yes.
yeah.
There, right now, there's no trail back to the fire department with the burn permits.
As far as we do the record retention and we do the processing of the burn permits, but the $10 fee goes back into the general fund.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Yeah, that doesn't make much sense to me. But yeah, I mean, one way or another, it either benefits the general levy and the taxpayers get it back one way or another, whether it goes to the fire budget or not. So I would say for now, I would probably give it to the district as well.
All right.
Any other
May-
questions? Anybody?
Oh, on this topic?
Yeah, I bet,
Oh,
yeah.
I have a few questions.
Go ahead.
So for the employees that are getting transferred over,
Yes.
what will be their human resources department if there's a problem? I mean, they're not gonna be coming to the city to complain about something or need something or any of that. What's the district's human resources department gonna be? How are they gonna handle things like that? I mean, we're like off the hook at this point, right?
Mayor and council, you will not be handling any fire district employees.
They have a personnel policy and a grievance process. But the ultimate authority, depending on the infraction level or rank, would either be the fire chief and or the fire board.
What if they want to step outside that and make a complaint or concern? And they don't feel comfortable going to the chief or,
Yep, so there is a process for chain of command and grievance processes. So if there was, let's say, currently today, if an employee fails to meet percentages,
oh, I think of harassment or some other nature.
that's actually called out in our personnel policy where, for example, if it's the fire chief, that's the offender, they go directly to the fire board. We still have to offer due process with terminations and things of that nature. But as of today, if we have to suspend an employee, that would be a city administrator, fire chief conversation. Does it meet the criteria of the policy? Yes, it does. They're suspended. That doesn't come to council for approval. Never has. That won't change with the fire district, other than the fire chief will say, yep, they failed to meet percentages, training, whatever, they're suspended. Now, they can grieve that suspension, which would ultimately, if they took the grievance process all the way through, would go to the fire board for reconciliation. We would still obviously rely on our attorney, which we do with complex HR issues as a city. So that would be our backup with some of the more complicated employee law related pieces.
So is your employee handbook already written?
Written and approved.
Did we approve it?
The fire board.
Oh, okay, so I haven't seen
Fire
it.
board. Yeah, you don't have a say as a council in the policies of the district. The fire board does. They are the governing authority. And it was simply our existing personnel policy for the city, our existing fire department policies for the fire department. We took out the stuff that doesn't apply to the fire department, whether it was a public works specific policy, a police department specific policy, city administrator specific policy. And we merged those two documents together. No standards or expectations have changed for any employees. It is exactly as it is today. With the exception of, I no longer report to a city administrator, I report to a fire board.
So after this is all done, Kate actually will have no role in the fire department besides helping us with budgets.
We will work with them as a contract service.
So, I guess that was all my questions on this, but if this sharing services and is where we're going with this for this, like, why wouldn't we do this with all of our departments then? Our building inspectors and, you know what, if, you know, I realize we started this because Bethel came to us for help. This is fine. But if sharing services and expenses and everything for the fire department, like you know, we've talked about, you know, building inspectors and different things. So I'm not asking for an answer.
Police
on this
department.
question.
You
Police
haven't
department.
had you haven't had the joy of working with other councils and trying to get approval on things. That can be very tedious, very mind numbing, very frustrating.
This isn't.
And very expensive for us.
Yeah, so there's a lot of it is if you have your own city and you can control your own budget, like right now, I mean, Bethel has an even say in what goes on at the fire board as we do, which I think is the right thing to do, even though they are smaller and they do, you know, they pay their portion as of right now. But working with, I mean, when we have joint roads with other councils, trying to get certain things done sometimes can be very frustrating. Right now, we share some services with Oak Grove with the water, which does definitely benefit us. But I think until that need arises from other councils, they want to control their own destiny, so to speak. And sometimes, even if it is something that we share, that those negotiations can be very hard to have. And that's why it's not as universal as it would be nice. We've had conversations with police in Oak Grove, I think at some point in time, or somebody reached out to me and wanted to get a quote. I don't remember if it was Oak Grove or where it was. But, you know, then Todd does the numbers and comes back and says, this is what it would cost us to get that up and running. And the other council or the other person who is interested in it says, yeah, it doesn't make sense for us. You know, we already contract with the county, so to speak, or whatever. But 5 people that can't agree amongst each other in one city, going with 5 people who don't agree with each other in another city can be very tough. So that's why I think that doesn't happen.
I agree with you. I mean, a neighboring community is going to spend over $1 million a year now for their sheriff's service. And then their neighbor has a police department. But again, like Joe said, it was 8 or 9, 10 years ago, they talked about maybe this would work. But again, the autonomy of what a city has, it's like harumph. And so then it all falls apart. That's why this has been it's kind of a delicate dance as well, but it's a community of 400 and some people and a council like ours. But yeah, I agree with you. To consolidate a lot of stuff, it would make perfect sense. But as we've seen so far, government doesn't make perfect sense very
They
well.
don't. Well, and I wasn't trying to say that we should do all that and go do shared services with all of
No, I
our
agree.
departments, but I just wanna say this because I know I've opposed a lot of decisions here. If I had been here when this started and Bethel came to us for help, I would have had absolutely no problem helping them. I understand their situation. I just feel like it would have been easier and more efficient to just help them with their fire calls and charge them for mutual aid costs instead of all of this. I mean, this is just, it's really a lot. And I'm having a hard time. If a taxpayer asked me, like, why are we donating city assets to a separate entity and literally having less control over it? I'm really struggling with that. And that's why I've been opposed to so many things and asked a lot of questions. I've tried to ask them in professional, polite way. But I would have never voted for this from the get-go. Maybe if I had been part of it all along and understood all of the, reasons, I could have been convinced, but coming into it at this point, when there's a whole manual written and I haven't seen it, that's hard for me to understand what all of these changes will be when I haven't seen a lot of the information. And I feel that it's taking away some, I don't want to use the word control. I'm not like a control freak, but it is taking away control from the 5 of us and giving it to 2 of us and 2 other people from Bethel and an outside party that I don't feel comfortable with. No personal thing to him, none whatsoever. And I don't think it's the right thing to do. Obviously, no one else on this council will agree with me. Everyone will vote.
Well,
for it,
there's
and
a
it'll
there's a
go.
history with that too, though, that I think I was on the outside looking in myself when Steve was taking charge in the initial talks with Kevin, and Kevin's been the mainstay the whole time with talks with Bethel. But understanding the nature of the volunteer paid on call fire departments and the struggles that the entire state is having with these situations. Also, not every city can go full time because of the budget, factors into it. So a lot of that comes from the nature of where I think a lot of these fire services are going to lead to. Again, we don't know when. We don't know if we'll be in a district with, say, now then in Oak Grove or Isani or whoever, Oak Grove and now then might do their own thing and want to join up with, Andover or Ramsey again or whatever. We have no idea where this is going to go, but I think the nature of the paid on call fire department is struggling a lot. And there's been a lot of strain on it throughout the state. And I believe throughout the country, if I remember right. I've read a few articles on that too that have popped up on the news while we were going through this stuff too. And that's what leads to having to even consider these types of arrangements is the need of having to have a fire department for one, and 2, the cost effectiveness of joining forces. But that's why we have the board as elected officials are there. And, we hope that they may or may not agree with us on everything, but we hope that they make decisions that we agree with and we trust them as the people trusted them to elect them in the first place. And then they're appointed to that board. But that's where a lot of this, I get what you're saying, Amy, but I think too, that's the history behind it gets deeper and leads you up to the point we're at now, and understanding some of those struggles and seeing some of those things is why we're at where we're at. And we're thankfully in a position to help somebody and not need help, so to speak. But this is a struggle, I think, throughout the fire departments and the paid on call fire departments without having to go full time at this time.
Well, and Joe, I'm probably the only one up here, obviously with the exception of Dave, that truly understands the paid on call fire department and how it works and how vastly different it is than running a department of full-time people that are there every day. If you have a question, you can just go to the next cubicle and ask them. You have people coming and going all the time. You're not together a lot, and managing a paid on call department is just very different than a full-time. And I understand that completely. And I just think that I just want to say it, that I'm not trying to be argumentative or anything,
I don't think
because I truly do understand the struggles. I just think it would have been a lot better if we had just helped Bethel out and they had stayed their department, if we could have just, they probably don't have hardly any calls per year. I have no idea.
More than you
But-
think.
But if we could have just charged them for mutual aid calls and not had to transfer $500,000 in assets to a separate company, more than 500,000. And I'm really struggling with that. And, that's how I feel. And I'm probably gonna, I am gonna vote no on anything that comes out of this. Eventually, obviously, the individual questions, I have to take those as they come, but I'm not trying to be argumentative, but I just feel that I wish I had been more involved. I know I've only been here for 10 months, but I
But
feel
of
like
those
I
10
was
months,
pretty.
there were meetings that you could have come to. And again,
Yes.
nothing against what I mean, again, like Joe said, they elect us to come do a job and they hope we have the honesty, integrity and sincerity to complete that job. And that's why we're here. You should maybe talk to the people of Bethel or go to a city council meeting in Bethel and implore them, why did you think this was such a great idea? Because they actually came to us. We didn't solicit them.
I know that.
But
And
Again,
I'm not trying to say anybody's doing anything
Sure.
dishonest, but integrity, I need to say what I'm thinking, or
No,
if I just
I
keep my
would
mouth, if
never
I just
begrudge
keep my
that.
mouth shut, I don't feel like I'm doing a service to this seat here. And that's how I feel. And so I just wanted to get that out there, that I feel that would have been a better route from the beginning, but
We did propose that. They were not in favor, but so. Right, there's two of us that are having this discussion, and in fairness to you, we explored. Joe and Kevin and even Mark, for the amount of time he's been with the committee, several different options over.
And the state fire marshals were involved every single step of the way.
Yeah.
And
so-
those are meetings
and
I couldn't have gone
And I
to.
can appreciate, right, because you don't have the history, so you're kind of coming at this a little bit blind
Sure.
from our lived experience and the discussions and the late meetings and the pros and cons and how we ended, to Joe's point, how we ended up here. I could very much appreciate that that's a difficult position. All I can tell you is this has been a long, robust, well vetted, well argued at times process for the benefit of everybody, both cities, and at the end of the day, the end user, because that's what matters most, right? We can argue about budgets and processes and policies and all of that other stuff. What matters is the service that ends up at Mr. and Mrs. Smith's house and meeting that expectation, right? The other piece that I would add as just an articulation, you used to live in Oak Grove, right?
I did.
The Anoka County Sheriff's Office provided law enforcement, right? This is really no different. We're still providing the fire service. We're not changing anything from a service deliverable standpoint. We're essentially the sheriff's department, but for fire, for two cities, right? So we're not recreating a new wheel or a new widget. You know, I had a conversation with a fire chief today who's really struggling with the cost of running their fire department right now and wanted to start to unpack how we got to where we are. When a fire engine now costs $1 million, I'm sorry, St. Francis can't go alone anymore. Bethel cannot go alone anymore. Our neighbors are not that far behind. Unless we're ready and willing to bring on significant tax levies to stem the bleeding, we have to rethink how we do service delivery, especially in the fire service. I don't have $1 million to replace a new fire engine right now,
Or 4 years to wait for
or 4 years to wait.
it.
We have to partner up. And to Kevin's point, right, and Joel's point, trying to operate within that space with two independent councils rather than a collective joint board for purpose is the most effective and efficient way. And that's been proven across the state and across the country with departments that have chosen to go down this path. So I get it. It's really hard to be in any elected official's position when initiatives have been in place for years prior to you being elected, right? Or anybody being elected, to try and catch up with really how complex and nuanced this process has been is difficult. I fully appreciate that and I fully understand. So I don't think you're argumentative. I listen to everything that you say, and I just want to make sure that I'm also providing background and context of things that you weren't privy to. So, but point well taken. It's a tough position for you to be in, and I understand that, and I appreciate that.
say something too.
Mhm.
And although we're not gonna be doing, the voting on fire department things, we still have, we have Mark, we have Kevin, and we have Dave, who are going to be at the meetings. We can, I'm assuming, we can, any of the fire board meetings we wanna go to or open to, or they're gonna be online or whatever. And so, as part of their council member reports, I'm sure they will both be adding things as they come up with the district. So we're not gonna be totally there's not gonna be this huge, I don't see there's gonna be this huge disconnect.
I don't either.
Um,
My hope is that this is seamless, not only on the inside, but on the outside.
right,
There'll probably be fire district reports during a council meeting.
right.
No different than what Kate's been asked to do now, or the chief, or the other fire chief, police chief.
I agree.
I think
And the
we're-
only thing I would caution is that, if you watch the fire boards or if you attend them, as a council member, there's already 2 council members. So if you have something you want to say about something you disagree with what the board did or didn't do, and I'm not sure where this ends up, but as far as open meeting stuff, I would address it at a meeting or a work session where it's been posted. Just because, again, you get 2 or more than 2 members. I don't know how that affects open meeting laws, but just to throw caution to the wind, I would say that.
But we'll be able to watch the meetings, I'm sure. There'll be
We're
some-
still working on all the logistics of how we set this up, and we had a lengthy discussion about what room do we host these meetings in, are we gonna use council chambers? I think Mark and I both appreciate, and Kevin appreciated more of the large conference room feel where we can just feel more connected in our conversations, but we're still working through a lot of those logistics.
Mayor and council, we can also post his meetings that it may have a quorum. That's just a piece of paper on our billboard, so that's easy to do too.
You stated your case well. Thanks. Seriously, don't ever not. It's pointless if you don't, if you don't make your statement or your case, it's pointless to be on.
I'm not just gonna sit here and not say.
Fair
So we're gonna take all of the fire department employee stuff out of our manuals then. And our policies.
Eventually. So, Mayor and council, I do need to do a housekeeping update today, but because they are still our employees until the end of the year, I wouldn't touch that until we have a full transition, because I don't want to prematurely take anything out of policies. So probably in our housekeeping next year, we'll address anything that's fire related. But that said, we still have to be careful because it is a recognized department in our ordinances. So even though it might be in our personnel policy, it is still reflective of our ordinances and could sit there just unused. So we'll see what legal recommends for that.
That wraps up that one.
That wraps up that one. All right.
Levy discussion.
Here.
Oh, Mayor and council, I'll kick this one off, I guess. So in the couple meetings that we've had, when we set our levy in September, there was quite a bit of discussion about, what can be pulled back, what can be cut. So working with the numbers, we pulled back, was it roughly 95,000, Darcy? And a lot of that is the inflationary. So what we've got, tonight is, in July, we had a projected rate of 16%, September, 16%, and that included the stormwater. So that would be the final number. But at that point, our levy alone was at about 11 point something percent. So what we did after pulling back roughly 95,000 in cuts leaves us with an overall rate of 14.47%. That includes the stormwater. And I make a note in here, although it's not easier for our residents, every city is feeling this pain right now. Darcy and I have seen statewide numbers, and they are literally from 3.5% to 30%. There are some greater Minnesota cities that are just at the top of that scale, and this is a statewide issue right now. And it's gonna be a tough year across the state, I think, with the county, the states, and even the federal decisions right now, we're all, you know, moving money and managing how we're gonna use these taxpayer dollars. Within on page 2 of the agenda is a table, and what it shows is the value and what had been proposed for a tax rate at the 16% with the cuts, you know, with cuts 2026, so that is at the 14%, and what that yearly difference is. So somebody with a $350,000 house, you know, if we pull this back by 2%, they save $33 a year. So with that, at the end, we also put what some, or I guess it's not at the end, it's in the middle, what some of those risks are. You know, that pulling it back that 2% again is that inflationary. If the market holds and, you know, we've got a fairly light call volume or snow loads or salt, right? There's a lot of variables that move in our budgets. We're making an estimated guess in September for how much snow is going to be in December of 26. And right, so how many calls is fire? How many accidents does police get into? So our budgets are set so early, we're basing these on the current year as well as the previous year and what is reasonable. So if the market holds with the inflationary numbers, it's a guess, we could be okay. If we've got the blizzard of 91 starting in November and all through April, and we've got overtime and we have a police officer out, or we have 3 cars that get in accidents, right? Those expenses, those unknowns is what is going to be the risk that is going to be on the table. And with that risk, we would either have to come to you and say, right, reserves have to be used. But if we're using those reserves, that inflationary push will hit 27, both for, you know, its own inflation, because we would be doing the same steps for 27, but then also making up for some of that 26. So with that, there's 2 options on the table. We wanted you guys to let us know in December, we need to create the documents, the resolution for the county, the PowerPoint, all things related to this budget. Do you want us to move forward at the 16% or at the 14%? And with that, I'm offering Darcy for any of the technical questions with the money. And just, yeah, answer any general questions, so.
I have a question. So what you're saying there is that on October 27th, today, work session discussion projected rate of 14.47. This figure was reached with a budget cut of roughly 95,000. Am I wrong? I think you meant not a budget cut, a lower increase.
Reduction.
Is it?
Well, we
Is
did
that-
budget cut, there's
No.
budget cuts to lower what we request for the levy.
Do you get my question?
Oh, I totally do, because you've heard me speak about this
Yeah,
before, yes.
So
So I mean, I don't like the word cut, even though I understand that it results in a cut. It's a
Semantics.
reduction in increase is what it is.
Yeah. So is that what it is, or is it really a cut?
Well,
It's not lower than the budget
Original.
for 25,
Okay, so it's really a lesser amount of an
a
increase.
lesser increase.
Okay,
It's a cut to your preliminary levy that was set.
Yes,
well, there's,
Okay.
there you, yes.
yes.
I mean, I think, you know, when Kate ran this out, I'm in favor of this, and, but I do have one question about it, because when we talked about if we have to dip into reserves, I remember our discussion last fall, it was on council, we talked about we could have thrown $100,000 or $200,000 of reserves in to reduce it at that time, because our reserves are actually a little higher than they need to be, correct?
According to the state auditor's office, yes, we're probably, I think we're in the 60%, and they are between, they recommend between 35 and 50%.
oh,
But the thing is that is based on your expenditures. So each year, your expenditures are going to go up. You're not gonna cut that. You're just not. So that amount becomes less with each year.
So if we took,
That percentage is less each year because our expenditures naturally go up.
And that's.
And
that, I
does
mean-
that affect, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Joe.
Does that affect your bond rating as well, what you have in reserves? When you go for bonds?
It can, they look at reserves that you have, they wanna see that you're managing what is thrown at you, are you prepared for what's happening in the world, you know, kind of. So they look at cash balances, they look at reserve, fund balance, they look at reserves, all of that stuff, yes, in a bond.
I think, I just personally think this is I don't think it's being irresponsible, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I'm very appreciative of Darcy and Kate working on this. And you know, my take on this is I think the city has to share some of the pain. And if this is the demolished pain and this is a token, it's token sharing the pain, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I'm appreciative of it. And I told Kate, I'm inclined to vote for the 14.4. Because it does two things. It shows that we're willing to share some risk and some pain. And it's not irresponsible to the point that I don't want to make comparisons, but like the water and sewer rates a while ago, I don't think it goes down that same path. So that's just where I'm at. Everybody else has got to weigh in here.
I agree with you, even though it only turns out to $33 per household. I think it's the right thing to do. We've had a lot of people in here saying we're spending too much money, so we should try to do something to lower that for people.
I'll chime in. What looms over in my mind is Highway 47 and 2026 and 27 is coming. And how are we gonna fund that? You know, our share is gonna be in the millions. How we fund that with, this is nice. I do appreciate the work done as well. I know it's not the mayor's desire was to, let's everybody give a little blood, you know, a pint of blood here, a pint of blood there. This is a creative way of going about it. Darcy, if we threw if we threw two more $95,000 at it, which would be $190,000, would it drop another, right now the current drop is 1.62%. If we threw another 190,000 at it, two more, this is really elementary, but two more $95,000 from either the liquor fund or our reserves, we'd drop it then 4.86%, would we not? And then we'd be down to 11.23 instead of 16.
That's wishful math. Would that work?
No, in that, I mean, you'd have to go through it's a percentage. You'd have to look and see what your percentage is. So
You went from 1609 to 1447 for 95 grand. So if I give you another 190,000, is that too simplistic of me to think that?
yes,
Okay,
sorry.
that's easy.
Sorry,
I'm a
it's more
simple guy.
complicated. It would,
All right.
But it's not a bad idea, you know, throw a little bit more. on
Yeah,
it.
but to me, I'll finish out with, I think it's nice that you did it. I still think it's a token. And and I agree kind of with what the mayor said, you know, it's showing that we did something, but still next year and 27 are going to be a big deal, a really big deal. So I think people have already kind of accepted the fact that we're greedy city council and we're just spending money like crazy. Well, we're not, but I mean, we've done frugal business up to this point. Like Joe says, there's going to be some phone calls made that you guys didn't do enough. You know, you give them a penny, you give them a pound. I don't know, but I do appreciate the work that was put into it. But I'm already used to the 1609, 1447 is, it makes you feel a little warm and fuzzy inside, but I don't know. And I know we can't go backwards. As I said before, I firmly believe in the time I've been here that we've been frugal and we've spent wisely as we've gone forward, even though many there are naysayers out there that we have not done any of that. I still happy with 1609. I'm not happy. I'm content with 1609, and we've already let them know. And like Kate put in here, it's from 1.5% up to 30%. some of the other cities and stuff I've heard, they're building and still doing stuff, and it's a lot bigger number than what we're talking about here, and I don't want people to leave, I don't want people to move, I don't want people to be disgruntled or upset that their taxes are going up, but again, Social Security, we got 2.8%. All our COLAs in our city people got 3%. I shouldn't say got, they deserved it. We've got the Minneapolis teachers on strike, going on strike tomorrow, maybe not, maybe so. They want 12.5%. It's like, where does it all stop? And I know that the citizens look at us thinking it needs to start now and it needs to start here. You know, you got, if you want nice things and you want to move forward, you want parks and recreation and amenities and stuff. I don't know, you know, you can't do it on a wish and a prayer. So I appreciate what work was done. I think unfortunately, I'll grin and bear the 1609 myself, but I won't vote against this, but I don't think it's much of an offer. I mean, it won't appease the masses, let's put it that way. And again, I appreciate what everybody's done, but it won't appease the masses.
Sir, Joe?
I tend to agree with Kevin on this. I mean, we're throwing them just a little bit of a bone, but I think that little bit could just come back and bite us 3 times harder, because we don't have a choice on 47. If we don't do something to fix that, our residents are gonna lose their ever-loving minds. And do we give them this $33 now and then come back in next year and say, oh yeah, we gave you 33, but now we got to go to 99 because we have to have money for this project. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. This project has to happen. And although I love seeing just that, we tried.
It's a gamble part.
We tried to give you this year, but to come back and have to take not only that $33, but take another 66 or whatever it is. It doesn't make us look any better. It just looks like, oh, you guys just kind of went like this and kicked it down the road again. We have to stop doing that. We have this project coming up that we have to face and we have to fund. And of course, we had some federal money come in. We have some other things that could come in, but we're still gonna have a huge cost.
Mayor, Council Mayor, so correct me if I'm wrong, Darcy, but right now, we don't have anything budgeted for 47. Knowing that we're going to have to pull a bond. And that it's the 2 projects, so pavement up would be a bond, and we're hoping that all of our grant that we received from Met Council will cover that. Pavement down is all water and sewer. So it is the water and sewer rate users that are gonna feel the pain from the pavement down. So right now, this budget doesn't prepare us for 47 either way. And then depending on how we have to pay for our share of the improvements, being pavement up or pavement down, will hit potentially all of our city with the pavement up, and then double hit our rate users with those utility lines. So this does not account for what we need for.
Right, and I realize that, but I'm just saying that every cut we give them, we're gonna still have to make up for that somehow. And knowing that we have this big project looming over us that our residents clearly want, and we're taking out the stoplights that they wanted and giving them something else that they clearly told us they didn't want. And we're gonna hit them with this huge bill for that too. I just don't think a $33 attaboy is, I don't think that's enough for me to say. I mean, if it was $300, I might say yeah, but for $33, I don't think that it's enough for me to say that we should do it.
The key word you have here, Kate, in the last paragraph is on page 1 is if the overall economy.
Yeah. and that's
Cost
the
of
whole
goods,
thing.
and then the risks involved, that's what really swayed me. I'm not much of a gambler. I'd like rather keep my pennies in my pocket. But it's the if part, and I know our citizens are living with the if as well. We have people tomorrow that their SNAP cards or day after tomorrow runs out. They're gonna worry about macaroni and cheese and maybe cornflakes possibly. So, but like Sarah said, if we give them a quarter now and we ask for $1.50 next year, it doesn't mean much to me. It wouldn't mean that much. It'd be kind of deceitful, but
See, here's one of the problems I have with that though, is let's just pretend everything goes great. We only got to plow one time. We got a couple $100,000 extra now. We're not designated to Highway 47. So if it was something that was designated towards that, the expected expenses on that project, but it's not. So essentially, we're talking about the world of if, so there's the potential that we could end up with a surplus. And then where does that money go? To the
You
slush
would have
fund?
you would have less of an increase the next year, which would be still, I mean, you could apply it to next year's budget, I would think, with the extra cash reserves. I think for me, I appreciate the exercise, Mark. My issue with this little of a deduction, and I say this with all due respect, I don't mean to throw shade at you, so don't take it that way. It's probably going to come out that way. So just know that I'm not trying to.
I can handle it, Joe.
I know. Anyway, to me, and I agree with you 100% that it's not at the level the water is. But me being the only, pardon the phrase, but the only surviving council member from the 20% decrease from the increase that we had in 16. In 2018, I got to be the hero and do what we ran on and lower the fee by 20%. Well, now because we did that and we didn't have that 20% throughout the last 8 years, that's a large reason. Now, granted, we're not talking about 8 years, whatever, but that's a large reason as to why the increase is what it is today. So that is on me. As a member of the council that's still here from that, I was a hero that day, and now I'm the villain.
I'm still bitter.
And so, I mean, to me, it's kind of like, to me, it's the same thing as in my opinion, it comes off as I get what you're doing. And I get, we're saying we don't need to spend so much money. We need to bear some of the pain. I understand where you're coming from. However, I think too, that again, it ends up being whether it's $3 a month now next year, we're asking for $10 a month. Say everything's glorious and beautiful. Great. We have an extra, 100,000 in reserves. We can say, okay, instead of going up, 7% next year, we go up 6% or whatever. I'm throwing numbers out there that probably doesn't add up either. So don't get on me for that, Darcy. But, I mean, it's one of those things that, yes, you can do that and say that. And again, the percentage of reserves always goes down because of the cost going up with everything. But I think too, we're looking at possible multiple bonds depending on where the city goes. Definitely a bond for 47, which again it's not affected by this budget, but you would be the water users who are already getting hit because of my decision, are going to get hit again by, say, instead of a $3 increase, now it's a $10 increase or whatever next year. And maybe it's not, and that would be great. But I think too, I talked to one of my frequent flyers that likes to call me, and I really wanted to see what this person had to say. And I threw the scenario out. It's pay me now or pay me later, so to speak, right? Now, granted, it may not be $10, it might be $6 we're asking for next year, but people are up in arms right now about the number that we have. And understandably so, with the building, with everything else, with all the maintenance funds, and this is part of my speech that I'll be given in my next council report. All these things that we've implemented in that short amount of time, which we've talked about before, that has really kind of hurt us. But the question is those are things that we need to have. And I think saving, and I hate to say it because it's only $12 a month. It's only $10 a month. When everybody's asking for $10 and $12 a month, it does add up. And when you got the school coming at us, when you got the county, when you got all these other entities doing the same thing, I understand it. But to me, this little of a decrease, which I don't think we can go lower either, by the way, I mean, you could, I guess, but I think it would be very irresponsible to do that. Because you're going to pay for it later, and you're either we kicked the can down the road, so to speak. We complained about the previous councils doing what they did with the water by not preparing. Then we did what we got elected to do, got it down 20%, thought we were heroes, thought we did the right thing, but we actually did what we were complaining about the other councils doing, because we then didn't prepare for this today, right? Because we had that decrease. So we did the same thing they did, and we did it because we thought it was the right thing to do, and that's what the people wanted. People say they want lower taxes, and they always say that, and I understand that 100%. I would love lower taxes as well, but I think too it's a lot of the people that say we spend too much money don't have the slightest clue what things cost and what it takes to run the city, and I don't mean that negatively towards the residents. Again, it comes down to people that want to put the time in to understand these things, and a lot of them don't, and I don't blame them. It's not the funnest thing to spend your free time on. So you have to take the time to get educated and make those phone calls to understand what's going on and understand why things are the way they are. And I think if we go down 2%, we say, hey, we saved you $3 a month. They're going to say, oh, big whoop. You guys are still spending way too much money. You're doing this, you're doing that. Not a lot of people are going to be happy. And then we're hitting them harder next year, potentially, right? We don't know, but doing what I did with the water and trying to do the right thing and learning from that mistake, I think that it feels like political posturing more than it does actually saving something. Now, again, if there was an actual way where we could provide the services that we provide and save, $500,000, hell yeah, let's do it. I don't think that's obviously a likelihood, and unfortunately, what we're seeing. I mean, you can look at other funds and whatever else that we've started to put into place, and try to hurt those funds in order to give relief. But there's some. I think there's some funds that you could say are considered negotiable. There's some, in my opinion, that aren't. But I think too, I don't think this is enough to. It just says, hey, look, we were trying to save you money, but really you're saving $3 a month, and my Hulu's going up, my Prime's going up, all those things are going up too. So I get it. When everybody's asking for it, it's tough. But I think too, it's if we don't do it now, we're gonna hit them harder later, and to me that's worse. And it's not at the level of the water, but it's still worse, because if they're pissed off about this extra $3 a month now compared to what we can give them, they're going to be really pissed next year when you got to charge them 10 or 15, or maybe it's only 4. I don't know. But either way, I don't see it being the risk versus reward is not worth the cut, in my opinion, or reduction. And I mean, I don't know. It's tough, because I'd love to give people relief too, but I don't know. Like, I asked this person, my frequent flyer, I can save you, this year I might be able to save, right? Bad word too, but save you $3 a month based on your home value. Cause I looked up their home value, looked up my home value. It's big whoop. But the other response I get is, it should be 0. The city spends too much money anyway. So, as little as possible, great. But then what if I got to charge you 10 now next year? How do you feel about that? And I didn't get a response from that. So, they're supposed to call me back and didn't. But I really want to know what this person had to say, because they're very vocal, and very negative on anything that has to do with the city as far as finances, because like all of us, I mean, I think we feel like that, we're spending too much money, taxation and all that, but that's where I lean anyway. I'll shut up. I'm just rambling.
I think we've got 3-2 consensus.
Darcy wants to say
So-
something, I
I
think.
just
Yep.
want to clarify one thing.
Yep.
Is I did try to account for the water and sewer on 47 in the water and sewer rates, okay? Cause there was a dollar amount that was given to me. If those dollar amounts are correct, I kind of said, hey, we're gonna have a bond payment. These are what I estimated be those bond payments and work that into what I had proposed on the water rates.
Originally,
Yes, so that is in there
it's
to
anticipated.
the extent of the numbers that I was given, okay? So. So that one hopefully won't hit them as hard as long as everything comes through the way it's supposed to.
Mhm.
Well, and plus with everyone, it seems like everybody wants us to do something about 47. So since it's something that everybody can clearly see a need for, those increases aren't gonna hurt as much. I'm hoping.
I don't think that's gonna be the case at all.
But-
Everybody
but
wants
the-
everything and
but
they
the
don't want to pay for
street-
anything.
They're not gonna,
The pavement part, like Kate said, there is not a number in the street fund for that, so that is going to be an adjustment moving forward.
in the perfect world, you're right, Amy. People would be like, we're just so happy this is getting fixed, but I'm still bracing myself for some kickback when people really actually realize that. I mean, we spent a lot of time and energy and money on coming up with a plan, and we just on them and said, nah, we're gonna do what we want anyway, which is something
Well, are
that.
you saying because we went from 2 stoplights to?
Yes, because
4
that's
roundabouts?
clearly what people told us they wanted, and we explained to them the cost that it would incur to the city, and they still said, that is what we want. We heard it over and over and over at every meeting I went to and everything I attended and everything. And now I'm not in favor of doing that at all. And I was very vocal about that. I don't like the fact that I will akin it to when the school district put all the money into finding out what people wanted for school colors and for the mascot. And then even though the results clearly came back with the school board went completely different and said, no, we're gonna do it this way anyway. People are still upset about that. I'm not looking forward to that one. I mean, hopefully with the cost being less, but I don't think that's gonna take the sting out for the girls' families who got hit there. That's not gonna help them at all. Chris, the little bit that I've talked to him is irate because he feels like they were promised something. And now that his daughter is no longer in the picture anymore, we don't care. So I don't think that it's going to be as easy as what you think it is. I think when people actually see the price tag of what we're gonna have to pay, no matter stoplights or roundabouts, it's not gonna be fun.
But it's a must do.
We have to do it.
Well, and
I get that. I
Yeah.
get it. It just. So
Yeah.
is keeping our water rates where we
Yeah.
can keep our water at a level where we're not getting fined by agencies because we're not complying or we're not able to keep our wastewater treatment facility open because we're not charging enough for what it costs to have that water. So no matter what, we're always gonna have people who aren't happy.
Well, and even just some recent history, we had people say that they did not want the apartment building and didn't care about paying for higher water, and then they seen the higher water price that was proposed
That
at
was one
that
man.
same meeting, and then they're not happy with that. So it's not, they say what they feel at the moment. They don't necessarily always. And I've done the same thing myself. I'm not, besmirching anybody for it. I was so mad about the water rates initially, and that's what got me involved to begin with. And I was very ignorant on how things actually work. I mean, it's whether or not you want to learn more and understand more too, but it's people say what they feel at the time, and those feelings can change, and they can change very fast. So it's just because people say things a lot of times. I mean, I would love to do the will of the people and give them everything they want. It's not going to happen. It's just not realistic, and financially it's not doable. You can't have everything and not pay for it. It's just unfortunately the way it is. So that's I'd love to give everything to everybody that they want, but you just can't.
You need anything else?
No, Mayor, unless Darcy, otherwise I think we have our direction.
So our direction is, the truth and taxation or first meeting in December will be based on what the preliminary levy was.
1609.
That's what I'm hearing.
Okay,
And then
That's-
Kate, when will we see, the next, on the next meeting? Will we see the fire department stuff, or when will that come back on the council agenda?
Mayor and Council, I don't know if it'll be on the next meeting. I haven't seen any of the drafts come back from shops yet, but it's gotta be one of the November meetings, so. If not.
Yeah, the next one is next week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I don't have them back yet, so I assume at least the second.
And we just answered questions that probably need to be addressed in it too.
Okay,
So,
meeting adjourned at 8:06 PM. Work session adjourned, I